on behalf of the Center for International Strategic Studies Islamabad to CISS seminar on commemorating Youm-e-Takbeer 2024 today. We also extend a warm welcome to our friends and colleagues joining us online from CISS Karachi, BTTN Balochistan, CISS AJK, Karakoram International University Gilgit, and Pakistan Navy War College Lahore. Ladies and gentlemen, for today's event, we are delighted to have with us Lieutenant General Khalid Ahmed Kidwai, former DGSPD, and Dr. Ansar Pervez, former Chairman PAEC, as our esteemed speakers. To commemorate Youm-e-Takbeer 2024, we are honored to host this seminar today. Every year, the CISS commemorates this momentous occasion with great enthusiasm and pride. Now, we will present a short video highlighting the role of nuclear technology in enhancing Pakistan's security and driving socio-economic development. I kindly request your attention, please.
The glorious history of the Youm-e-Takbeer began with the 28th of May 1998, which marks this year the 25th anniversary of the day Pakistan responded to India's resumption of nuclear weapons tests. India nuclearized South Asia by conducting the first nuclear test in 1974 and resumed testing in 1998. This time, Pakistan decided to respond effectively to the Indian tests. There are indications that India may again test the thermonuclear weapons, which will increase the strategic instability in the region.
Youm-e-Takbeer is not only a day of solidarity for Pakistan, the occasion on which our defense was made impregnable, but it also marked the outstanding applications of atomic energy and sustainable development of our country. Since 1957, our scientists and engineers have used nuclear atoms for peace and sustainable development. For instance, in producing electricity, cancer treatment, and producing disease-resistant crops. These aspects are directly linked to United Nations Sustainable Development Goals for 2030.
Pakistan was among the founding members of the International Atomic Energy Agency and a responsible nuclear state. Since India conducting its first nuclear test on May 18, 1974, Pakistan exercised 24 years of restraint before conducting nuclear tests to restore the strategic balance and firmly establish a deterrence regime against New Delhi.
After the first provocation by India in 1974, Pakistan had even proposed a nuclear weapons-free zone and a no-war pact to India. Soon after 1998 tests, Pakistan proposed a bilateral nuclear tests ban treaty and a strategic restraint regime. Unfortunately, India has spurned all the efforts to stabilize the region and has resisted resumption of bilateral dialogue.
Instead, India has upped the ante in its illegal occupation of Jammu and Kashmir by vertical, nuclear, and conventional weapons proliferation, and by espousing provocative doctrines that seek space for war and a nuclear overhang. Pakistan's deterrence capability has prevented crisis escalation, but India's irresponsible strategic behavior has increased nuclear risk.
On the 25th anniversary of Youm-e-Takbeer, we also celebrate the crucial role nuclear energy plays in achieving sustainable development goals, such as affordable and clean energy, climate action, quality education, zero hunger, good health, and many more.
Pakistan currently operates 6 nuclear power plants, which are producing 3,530 megawatt of clean nuclear energy.
Pakistan's vision is to produce around 44,000 megawatts of clean nuclear energy by 2050. This achievement will transform the national development landscape in an unprecedented manner. Pakistan will have enough energy for industry, infrastructure, and growth sectors, including domestic consumption.
Ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being for all at all ages come under UN Sustainable Development Goal 3 regarding good health and well-being. The Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission has in total 19 Medical Center spread across the country. Annually, around 1 million persons benefit from these centers, which cover 70 to 80% load of the country. The oncology centers, they are open to all and not selective in their treatment, unlike some who do not entertain patients in advanced stages of cancer. Under Goal 2, Zero Hunger to achieve food security, improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture, PAEC has Agriculture and Biotechnology Institute. These include NEFA, NIPG, Nuclear Institute for Agriculture and Biology, Clean Atomic Energy Agriculture Research Center, TANDOJAM.
Varieties of different crops have been developed by PAEC, including 27 varieties of wheat, 35 cotton, 15 rice, 5 sugarcane, 19 mung bean, 11 chickpea, 4 lentils, 8 oilseeds, and 3 varieties of fruits and vegetables. Most of these crops are a result of transmutation by nuclear radiations, and these varieties are now grown in large areas of Pakistan.
PAEC's sustained research and development in agriculture helped Pakistan earn $7.4 billion through improved crop yields. Pakistan's success in harnessing the peaceful atom for socio-economic development has earned it the respect and recognition of the IAEA.
Pakistan has also made great strides over the past 6 decades in the peaceful application of nuclear technology, particularly in the biotechnology and health sectors.
On this day of national significance and unity, we reiterate our commitment to continue to strive for utilizing nuclear energy for peaceful purposes and contributing more towards regional peace, stability, and sustainable development. Pakistan Zindabad, our strategic program, Paindabad.
Thank you for your attention. I now invite Ms. Samna Saqib, our research officer, to provide an introduction to CISS. Over to you, Ms. Samna.
Thank you, Ms. Mariam. I will now give a brief overview of CISS and its activities over the past decade. CISS was established in 2010 as a non-partisan think tank. Our mission is to conduct policy research, analysis, and advocacy, and also highlight the evolving regional and global strategic issues. In pursuit of this vision, CISS aims to promote Pakistani perspective on key domestic, regional, and global issues through research and outreach. This includes our engagement with national and international policy institutes for the exchange of ideas and knowledge. CISS functions as a reliable source of data and analysis, and we also facilitate capacity building of young scholars in the field of strategic studies through mentorship, training, and internships. We work on these research areas, which includes deterrence, nuclear diplomacy, nuclear safety and security, emerging technologies, geopolitics, arms control and disarmament, cyberspace, nuclear policy, strategic stability, nuclear non-proliferation, strategic export control regimes, and astropolitics. We work on these research areas in 3 formats, including print, digital, and in-person interaction. This is our core team, which is headed by Ambassador Ali Sarwar Naqvi, Executive Director of CISS. Keeping in line with the vision and strategic objectives, we have produced various publications. Some of them include a biannual peer-reviewed journal, CISS Insight, which publishes solicited articles on strategic stability issues. We have some other prominent publications, CISS Strat Review and CISS Strategic View, which aims at bringing forth useful analytical assessments of strategies of key global players and their implications for regional strategic and security calculus. These are some of our latest publications, which includes a special issue on Youm-e-Takbeer 2023 and an event report titled Military Dynamics of the Indian Ocean Region's Maritime Security, Imperatives for Pakistan, among others. We have also published books on various issues. Some of them include Geopolitics of the Asia-Pacific region, Pakistan's security challenges, Pakistan's nuclear program and policy, and India's nuclear capability, policy, and doctrines. We also have an online publishing forum, CISS blog, which serves as a dynamic platform featuring a variety of expert opinions and insightful analysis on events and issues of both national and international significance. CISS has established strong collaborations with multiple policy institutes, both within Pakistan and abroad. Over the years, we have successfully organized several joint events with esteemed think tanks in the UK and the US. We are also actively engaged in signing MOUs with prominent international think tanks in China and various Central Asian states. Through our strategic and impactful social media engagement, we have been able to create a significant impact in every region of the world. Our organization has been fortunate to cultivate a diverse and extensive audience spanning across the globe. Our diverse audience reflects the inclusive nature of our initiatives, where we value and embrace different perspectives and ideas. This continuous engagement strengthens our mission and enables us to address critical issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Amna. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the formal proceedings with welcome remarks by Ambassador Ali Naqvi, Executive Director of CISS. Ambassador Naqvi has served in various diplomatic assignments during his diplomatic career spanned over 36 years. These include United Nations, both New York and Vienna, and various other capitals including Washington, D.C., London, Paris, and Brussels. After his retirement from Foreign Services of Pakistan, he was appointed as Member Chairman's Advisory Council of the Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission. Ambassador Naqvi is the founding Executive Director of CISS, established in 2010. You have the floor, sir.
It is 1 year more that we had this important event. I would, before beginning, and I may mention here that we had acceptances of far more people, and we had arranged for them to be seated here. But because of the holiday that was announced, many of those who had confirmed have not been able to come. But anyway, I would particularly like to welcome Lieutenant General Retired Khalid Khidwai Saab, who has joined us this afternoon. I also welcome Dr. Ansar Parvez and Mr. Parvez Bhatt, the two former chairmen of the Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission, Dr. Zafar Jaspal, Dr. Nasir Hafiz, Dr. Adil Sultan, and we have so many other participants in the meeting here today that I am delighted, and I welcome all of you. I also welcome my colleague, Ambassador Ishtakin Andarabi, who has joined us as well. Actually, some of my other colleagues had also confirmed, but because of the holiday, I think they have not been able to. Anyway, it is indeed a very great pleasure. And I am so happy to see all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, the Youm-e-Takbeer is an edifying story of what was then the strategic environment and how we dealt with it. I will briefly narrate what I saw because I was then in the Foreign Office as Additional Secretary and was witness to much of it. Much has been written about and said about the nuclear tests. But I will give you a few personal points of my perspective. First, we went into the decision of having the nuclear tests after great deliberation. The impression is that we decided to just go for the nuclear test, but it was not like that. We spent long hours in the Foreign Office from 11th of May, when the Indians held their nuclear tests, till when we actually did it. Every night we would be there till midnight or late into the night to monitor what was the reaction in the West. And the reaction was every night we would assess and we would find that the reaction is very, very lukewarm, very weak. There was no outrage at what had happened, despite the violation of the non-proliferation norms. And on our part, we were also studying the implications of what we would do if nuclear tests are held. We had long sessions with the Ministry of Finance, who were assessing what would happen if sanctions were imposed upon us. And we had long sessions with the other ministries. Foreign Office was constantly in touch with the Prime Minister's Secretariat. President Clinton called 3 times the Prime Minister, trying to persuade him not to undertake the tests. I was the Additional Secretary Americas, so I put through the calls that President Clinton was making to the Prime Minister. So, it was a period of considerable concern, dilemma, and also deliberations that we went through. And then, on the night of the 25th or the 26th of May, we had the alarm when at 3 a.m. we got news that F-16s were going to take off from Chandigarh airport and would be headed for Kota. Now, right or wrong, but this was a considerable alarm for the government. And we summoned all the ambassadors of the P5 countries to the Foreign Office. And I still remember that the Chinese ambassador came in his night suit because, they were all pulled into the Foreign Office in the early hours of the morning. And we warned the countries of the P5 countries, P5 members, that if this were to happen, then Pakistan would immediately take retaliatory action. So I think that alarm that was raised actually triggered our decision, because we were still unsure whether we should do it or not. We also were getting feedback, which the chairman of the PAC may recall. We were getting feedback from the technical side as to how soon we can do it. And eventually, we were ready to do it. And on the 28th, we had our nuclear tests at Shagai. So it is a historic thing. We have to record all this. We have to put into our narrative how we went through this whole experience. As far as the nuclear program of Pakistan is concerned, in the first place, Pakistan began its nuclear journey not for having a classified military program. As, for example, Israel or North Korea. They began as a classified program. They began as a military program. Pakistan did not. We began our program for our socio-economic development, benefiting from the US initiative of Atoms for Peace. We were one of the first 3 countries to benefit from that program, which was launched in 1953. Even India was not in that list. Pakistan and Turkey were the 2 Muslim countries, and the third one was Israel. So this opened up for us a great opportunity for our young people at that time, our scientists and engineers, to go to Western centers of learning and to acquire knowledge in the peaceful uses of nuclear energy, which resulted in the development of our power generation projects, development of our agriculture and medical facilities. It was also the time when the IAEA was established, when the Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission was established, when hundreds of young students who later became big names in our atomic program acquired degrees and came back, acquired expertise and came back to run our various nuclear uses programs. At the same time, we carried out actions in the United Nations at the multilateral level. We sponsored 2 resolutions, one on nuclear weapon-free zone in South Asia and the other on negative security assurances for non-nuclear states. When I went to the UN in 1983, we were still sponsoring those resolutions, and we would be lobbying with all the countries to get support. And we would every year get more than 100 votes on. In those days, the UN was constituted of, I think, around 140 or 145 countries. And we would get more than 100 votes on our resolutions. We continued on the path of peaceful uses. Please have a seat. We continued on the path of our program of peaceful uses. We set up Kanoop and Nigbe and Nori, which were talked about a little earlier in the video, and a whole range of facilities in agriculture and medicine all over Pakistan, from Karachi to Peshawar. When the 1965 war happened, we continued on the path of nuclear energy for peaceful uses. But when the 1971 war happened, we realized that India was an existential threat and a danger to our very existence. Then we began our own classified program, and we developed nuclear capability, nuclear weapons capability. We seem to have developed, by all accounts, our nuclear weapons capability by around the mid-80s, but we exercised restraint till 1998, when India conducted its second round of nuclear tests, the first being in 1974, on May 11, 1998. We then responded on May 28 in a very effective manner. Now that many years have passed, there have been dangers and threats all along, but the deterrence, as General Kadwai said this morning at another think tank, the deterrence, however fragile, has held so far, and India has not dared to challenge Pakistan in this regard. We have kept pace with India on our military program. We are now in a position to revert back to the broader and original objective of developing our peaceful nuclear program in tandem with our military program. So this is how things have developed, and I thought I'll just briefly talk about it. I look forward to the presentations of our esteemed speakers, which they will share with us in regard to Pakistan's nuclear program. And I am pleased to have them grace us with their presence on this momentous occasion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Naqvi, for setting the tone for the seminar. I now invite Lieutenant General Khalid Ahmed Kidwai to deliver his talk on Pakistan's nuclear program since 1998, opportunities, challenges, responses, and future trajectory. Lieutenant General Kidwai has led a highly meritorious military service for more than 5 decades. He was awarded the coveted Sword of Honor on graduation at the Pakistan Military Academy. He has held a variety of prestigious command, staff, and instructional appointments and is a graduate of Pakistan's Command and Staff College, National Defense University, and the U.S. Army Field Artillery School, Fort Sill, Oklahoma. After the May 1998 nuclear tests, Lieutenant General Kidwai pioneered the establishment of Pakistan's National Command Authority and was appointed as the founding Director General of Strategic Plans Division in December 1998. He served as DGSPD for 15 years, and since 2014, he has been serving as an advisor to the NCA. As DGSPD, he conceived, articulated, and executed Pakistan's nuclear policy and deterrence doctrine comprehensively. He translated these doctrines into a robust nuclear force structure, oversaw, and ensured the establishment of the Army, Navy, and Air Force Strategic Force Commands, including the development and operationalization of a variety of nuclear weapons. Lieutenant General Kidwai is also the architect of Pakistan's Civilian Nuclear Energy Vision 2050, as well as the National Space Program 2040. In recognition of his devotion to duty, strategic vision, and outstanding leadership of Pakistan's nuclear and space programs, Lieutenant General Kidwai has been awarded Pakistan's highest civil award, the Nishan-e-Imtiaz, the second highest civil award, Hilal-e-Imtiaz, in addition to Hilal-e-Imtiaz military. You have the floor, sir.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you for that introduction. Ambassador Ali Sarwan Naqvi, Mr. Parvez Bhatt, Dr. Ansar Parvez, Brigadier Zahir Kazmi, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. I feel greatly honored to have been invited by the Center for International Strategic Studies, CISS, to speak on the occasion of the 26th Youm-e-Takbeer. I think all Pakistanis understand the importance of 28th May and 30th May 1998 as two historic and critical dates for Pakistan's national security. The nuclear tests conducted by Pakistan's brilliant scientists and engineers on these two dates represent the firm establishment of a strategic. The nuclear tests conducted by Pakistan's brilliant scientists and engineers on these two dates represent the firm establishment of a strategic balance in South Asia, which till then had eluded Pakistan. A covert nuclear capability. Can I be heard at the back? Let me try this one. Yeah. A covert nuclear capability whose journey had started in 1972 was now announced to the world at large as an overt nuclear capability, especially for the benefit of our adversary in the East to register and ponder over the implications arising out of the restoration of this disturbed strategic balance and the offsetting of the relative conventional asymmetry. The topic that has been chosen by CISS, Pakistan nuclear program since 1998, opportunities, challenges, responses, and future trajectory. It's both challenging and yet not very challenging at the same time. Challenging only because it's a bit of a test of my memory recall abilities of events and issues of 26 years ago, and not very challenging because once recalled, things appear in my mind with sufficient clarity because these happened on my watch for over 15 years at the SPD. Most of these at our own initiative and with our own reasoning and rationale. The real challenge here, however, thrown by CSS, CISS at me is to squeeze all of these 26 years into 30 minutes. Thank you, Naqvi sir. Ladies and gentlemen, when you look back at the history of Pakistan nuclear program since the famous Multan meeting of nuclear scientists called by President Zulfikar Ali Bhutto in 1972, 52 years ago to be exact, you might discern a very clear line of separation between two eras of 26 years each. Nuclear program in the pre-28th, 30th May 98 era, and then the nuclear program in the post-28th, 30th May 1998 era. What was achieved by the celebrated Pakistani scientists and engineers in the pre-28th to 30th May 1998 era, 26 years to be exact, and specifically in those two historic days, was the culmination of a heroic, committed, and dedicated national scientific and engineering effort underwritten by a consistently fierce political will, commitment, and national resolve at the government levels, irrespective of the politics of the day, to make Pakistan a nuclear weapons power. Pakistanis may or may not have eaten grass, but the galaxy of Pakistani scientists and engineers, through their successful experiments, demonstrated to the world on those 2 days a basic Pakistani nuclear weapons capability as they responded in style to the Indian nuclear tests of 11th and 13th May 98. On the other hand, the post-nuclear test era from May 1998 onwards, again 26 years to be exact, for which Allah Almighty chose some of us to carry forward the good work of the scientists, represents the full operationalization, consolidation, and the securing of Pakistan's nuclear capability, physically and diplomatically, according to the policy of credible minimum deterrence initially, and then subsequently the policy of full spectrum deterrence. Before proceeding further, I consider it appropriate to very briefly put on record as to how destiny placed me and my colleagues in a position where it became our responsibility to take Pakistan nuclear program forward 1998 onwards and to shape it as per a vision of its end state. On approval for promotion to the rank of Major General in late April 98, I was posted to the COAS Secretariat as DG Evaluation, Analysis and Research Cell, which was set up by the then COAS General Jahangir Karamat as a small think tank within the COAS Secretariat for working on special issues. The first DG EA&R cell and my immediate predecessor was then Major General Ehsan Salim Hayat, later Vice Chief of Army Staff, who worked on a number of other issues but not the nuclear subject. When I reported to the chief a few days after the nuclear test of 30th May 98, he tasked me to develop a paper, a proposal for the establishment of a national command and control system for Pakistan, now that Pakistan had declared its nuclear weapons capability overtly. My small team and I put our heads together and we completed the task to the best of our professional ability. However, before General Karamat could have a look at it, he had to resign and General Pervez Musharraf was appointed as the new COS sometime in October 98. It was General Musharraf who, after attending a few presentations on our proposals, approved the recommendations as proposed by us and then surprised me by asking to take over as the first DG SPD, an appointment that was proposed in the recommendations of our paper. Thus began the journey of over 15 years of my association with the nuclear program, the beginning of what I have called the second era from May 98 onwards. As we settled down in our new premises in the Chaklala garrison, the newly created SPD started to find its feet, fill in the necessary manpower, and commence its work in all seriousness with a clear advantage of confidence that comes from ignorance. The very first obvious challenge, therefore, that I would like to mention without any hesitation was that of overcoming our ignorance of matters nuclear, whether strategic, scientific, organizational, operational, or the locations of various sites of various strategic organizations spread far and wide across the country, personalities and individuals as to who was who and in which strategic organization. It was a truly mysterious world out there, and the level of secrecy had all along been so high that even asking questions invited hushed answers, sometimes in sign language. The other side, by which I mean the scientists and engineers, were also not quite sure as to how much of the classified information they could share with this new gentleman. It took time to educate and familiarize ourselves with the new environments, with people who had just recently emerged as national heroes, the new scientific jargon, and most important, where stood the program and what needed to be done from here on. One thing was clear, that SPD had hit the ground running, and there wasn't much time to waste in getting on with the further development and operationalization phase. Nevertheless, patience and good manners helped us in bringing down some of the mental barriers. From there on, we became a respected part of their team, and the mutual respect, camaraderie, and even friendships developed then exist till today. First challenge overcome. To begin with, the next challenge turned into an opportunity was broadly the work undertaken in the second era, our era, which was based on the early identification and conception of a vision, and thereafter heads down for focused work on 7 main segments and a few additional supporting ones, all moving in parallel because most of the work was interlinked. These, when gradually integrated into one wholesome force in being as a tri-services strategic capability, a term that I learned from my naval friends at the War College, was to based on elements of credibility of the capability, as well as the minimum numbers of weapons assessed, which would duly radiate the strategic effects of deterrence, of aggression on the large military machine of our adversary. And mind you, no staff college or war college prepares one for the challenge of conceiving and developing an operationalized national nuclear capability. No ready DS solutions. All of these had to be based on our best professional judgments and on-job learning. These 7 main elements, each of which was a challenge of sorts, were: 1, the establishment of an institutionalized nuclear command and control structure comprising of a National Command Authority, the NCA, the Strategic Plans Division, the SPD, as a one-window secretariat, and the 3 trial services strategic forces in the field to handle the national nuclear capability. This was based straight on the approval that had been accorded to our initial paper that had been presented to the COS and subsequently to 2 other forums of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Committee, the JCSC, and the National Security Council, the NSC. 2, the conception of a national nuclear policy with a specific vision of where Pakistan nuclear capability ought to be for at least a decade beyond the scientific experiments of May 98, say by the year 2010. This was based on the classic military methodology of assessment of the likely geopolitical and strategic environments in the coming decade, the nature of the evolving threat with an eye on strategic developments across the border, and own technical, operational, and financial capabilities and capacities. 3, based on the foregoing assessments, translation of the national nuclear policy or vision into a robust force development strategy for the raising, equipping, housing, and training of the 3 trial services strategic forces as the end users as per the then approved policy of credible minimum deterrence. 4, in line with the force development strategy, the real-time sweat and hard labor by the strategic organizations to develop and deliver in adequate numbers, in tangible terms, the wherewithal of a variety of nuclear weapons for the 3 trial services strategic forces, to include weapons earmarked as first and second strike capability. 5, conceiving and developing a secure and efficient C4I2SR capability, which stands for Command, Control, Communications, Computers, Intelligence, Information, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance. The project of conceiving and developing a modern strategic C4I2SR system was a technical and operational challenge, As you might note, the innocent sounding acronym of C4I2SR has 8 elements within it, each one of which is a wholesome system in itself, to be conceived, developed, tested, integrated, and then fielded within the length and breadth of the nuclear infrastructure to provide foolproof command control capability to the NCA, SPD, and the strategic forces. 6. The securing of all of the foregoing elements of Pakistan nuclear capability against all types of external or internal threat under the broader rubric of nuclear security. You would recall that due to the worldwide politico-military fallout of 9/11, the US invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq, the war on terror, and its severe internal fallout inside Pakistan, nuclear security particularly became a top priority area. Under the shadow of the then prevailing adverse geopolitical environments, including the sharp international focus on the safety and security of Pakistan nuclear weapons and the negative international narrative of the possibility of Pakistan nuclear assets falling into wrong hands, further fueled by hostile adversaries, there was zero margin for error. We realized that in those difficult days, when internal terrorist attacks, particularly against Pakistan's military installations, were being conducted with relative impunity, any incident in the domain of the SPD, howsoever big or small, would be just the opportunity that the international media and our adversaries might be waiting for to blow out of proportion and further the purported myth that Pakistan nuclear weapons were not safe. SPD simply could not afford to assign anything but the highest priority to nuclear security. We therefore invested much time, effort, and funds in ensuring that nuclear security of Pakistan's nuclear infrastructure would be as foolproof as was humanly, professionally, and financially possible. Allah be praised, we came out of that particular difficult phase safe and unscathed. Consequently, it was quite satisfying to learn every once in a while the influential international voices which could verify independently through their national tactical means or NTMs, declaring formally that Pakistan nuclear weapons were in safe hands. For example, just one quote amongst the many that I can recall came in David Sanger's book Confront and Conceal: Obama's Secret Wars and Surprising Use of American Power. And he wrote somewhere that the process has impressed as to how seriously the Pakistanis take nuclear security, perhaps more seriously than anyone else in the world. And talking of challenges, therefore, nuclear security was certainly one of the bigger ones. And 7, last but not the least, the conduct of nuclear diplomacy in concert with the Foreign Office and our key diplomats abroad, especially in Geneva, Vienna, Washington, and New York, with the objective of preempting and preventing any adverse fallout of international efforts that might be detrimental to the smooth development of Pakistan's nuclear program and its objectives as per the vision. Now, remaining within the broad parameters of the foregoing segments, my personal way of looking at the end state big picture of the force development strategy was to see the end state big picture as one large jigsaw puzzle, which needed to be completed in its final shape by placing the large number of smaller pieces, called these projects, at their right places. These smaller pieces of the jigsaw puzzle were tasked for development to the developing agencies or strategic organizations as strategic projects, each with clearly defined timelines and dedicated year-to-year funding. Whenever there was a project proposal put forward by a strategic organization, my mind would try and read the relevance of the project to the end state big picture and the part that the proposed project would play in it. Whether the project fell in the category of development of infrastructure by way of indigenization, or in the category of a new weapon system, or in the category of a new and emerging technology, the litmus test invariably was the project's place in the end state big picture. If there was justification and relevance, the project was a go, or else it was a polite no-go. In this context, another major challenge turned into an opportunity was the never-ending saga, which continues till today, of layers upon layers of sanctions and denials imposed on Pakistan by the international actors with a clear intent of preventing the further development of Pakistan's nuclear program and squeezing it as much as possible. These sanctions and denials went to the extent of being ridiculous, indiscriminate, and devoid of any logic in their application. The list of entities that were sanctioned fairly regularly sometimes included universities and private sector companies that were miles away from the nuclear program. What was our response and standard policy? Very simple: go indigenous. It took time, funding, and patience, but take my word, our scientists and engineers at the strategic organizations are professionally in a different class altogether. Committed and motivated professionals who love challenges. I cannot recall a single project which we decided to develop indigenously and on which they did not deliver. The sanctions and denials invariably work to our advantage by compelling us to become self-reliant. Amongst many other success stories of our times, indigenization of the nuclear infrastructure is one big one. And this is something which was not an SPD effort alone. The story goes back to the earliest days of the commencement of Pakistan nuclear program. Both the eras that I have talked about, 52 odd years cumulatively, are replete with success stories of projects and facilities being developed locally when compelled by sanctions. Perhaps we owe a small vote of thanks to our detractors. Operation Parakram, undertaken by India in the year 2001 and 2, was a watershed event which impacted SPD's force development strategy. As a consequence of the attack on India's parliament in December 2001, India, never in a hurry to establish the truth, straight away put the blame on Pakistan and deployed its entire military in battle-ready, offensive-ready mode on Pakistan's eastern border. Pakistan too followed suit and carried out operational counter-deployments of its conventional forces. For 10 months, however, India did not pick up the courage to attack Pakistan and withdrew its forces after suffering considerable attrition in the hot desert in men, materials, and reputation. Certainly, a contributory factor for India getting deterred was in no small measure because of Pakistan's nuclear capability. In the ensuing years thereafter, together with its earlier experience of the failed exercise brass tacks of 86-87, India finally concluded that all-out war was no longer an option under the nuclear overhang now prevailing in South Asia. It started to work on a new war-fighting strategy of limited war with shallower objectives, starting with tactical formations. Consequently, a new doctrine called the Cold Start Doctrine was adopted for fighting a rapid but limited war. It took nearly 10 to 12 years for India to be ready to fight under the new doctrine. At the SPD, the new strategic and operational developments posed a challenge. Our operational and strategic analysis concluded that though India had regressed from the strategy of an all-out war to a limited war, the Indian obsession to be prepared now to fight a limited conventional war, irrespective, was being encouraged by a perceived gap in Pakistan's nuclear inventory at the tactical level. Hence, the Indian Army's focus on commencing operations by independent battle groups at the tactical level. While Pakistan's larger nuclear weapons, categorized as strategic and operational according to their ranges and yields, were deterring large-scale operations, the Indian military apparently considered that there was yet space to fight at the tactical level. Our conclusion, therefore, was simple: plug the perceived gap by developing short-range, low-yield nuclear weapons and thereby go full spectrum. It was easy to conclude, but to get there involved one of the biggest challenges to SPD's force development strategy in terms of time, technological challenges, diplomatic challenges, and of course, financial challenges. Nevertheless, we took the decision, the rest is history. SPD and its organizations identified the scope of the variety of work that needed to be done and got on with it. The eventual outcome was the Nasr short-range multi-tube weapon system with appropriate nuclear yields and range to fully cover the bridgehead battles of India's independent battle groups and follow-on forces. The smaller weapons required plutonium as fissile material. Therefore, the required numbers of plutonium-producing reactors and reprocessing plants were constructed at the fastest pace possible. Astute nuclear diplomacy ensured the required time in terms of years was made available. By 2011, a little over a decade since May 98, we had reached a point in our force development strategy when we felt confident enough to transit Pakistan's nuclear policy from credible minimum deterrence to full spectrum deterrence. During the period of this decade plus, With the development of a variety of ballistic missiles, the tactical nuclear weapon Nasr, together with a family of highly accurate low-flying cruise missiles, Babar and Rad, for a variety of land, air, sea, and undersea platforms, the long-range Shaheen 3 with a range of 2750 kilometers, the Ababil with a multiple independently targeting re-entry vehicle MIRV capability. By 2011, the entire spectrum of nuclear weapons was covered horizontally and vertically. India's vast eastern and southern geographical dimensions, including its outlying territories, were therefore fully covered by Pakistan's various nuclear weapons. Today, Alhamdulillah, Pakistan's full spectrum deterrence capability, while generally remaining within the larger philosophy of credible minimum deterrence, comprises horizontally of a robust tri-services inventory of a variety of nuclear weapons, a triad, if you may. It is held on land with the Army Strategic Force Command, at sea with the Naval Strategic Force Command, and in the air with the Air Force Strategic Command. Vertically, the nuclear spectrum encapsulates progressively increasing destructive weapon yields and range coverage at three tiers: strategic, operational, and tactical, all the way to 2750 kilometers, so as to cover India's vast eastern and southern geographical dimensions, including its outlying territories. Cumulatively, there's an awesome amount of deterrent nuclear power available to the NCSPD. It enables Pakistan to effectively deter aggression through smart deterrence strategy in the first and second strike modes. The capabilities enhance Pakistan's response options, both for peacetime and pre-war deterrence, and if ever deterrence is challenged by the adversary, for intra-war deterrence. The development strategy was designed to enable a powerful full-spectrum deterrence, and on that it has delivered. Specifically, the policy of full-spectrum deterrence implies the following: that Pakistan possesses the full spectrum of nuclear weapons in three categories: strategic, operational, and tactical, with full range coverage of the large Indian landmass and its outlying territories. There is no place for India's strategic weapons to hide. That Pakistan possesses a full range of weapons yield coverage and the numbers strongly secured to deter the adversary's policy of massive retaliation. Pakistan's counter-massive retaliation will therefore be as severe, if not more. And thirdly, that Pakistan retains the liberty of choosing from a full spectrum of targets in what I call a target-rich India, notwithstanding the Indian BMD or the Russian S-400, to include counter-value, counter-force, and battlefield targets. By developing full-spectrum deterrence capability, we have reinforced deterrence at all levels, re-restored the disturbed strategic balance, thereby ensuring that peace will generally prevail. Cold start doctrine of proactive operations have not only been checked, but the operational options of the large Indian military have been severely curtailed to a point that now, in 2024, 5 years since the last Indian humiliation at Balakot Rajaury in 2019, one hears murmurs about a dynamic response strategy being crafted by the Indian military planners based essentially on the hackneyed strategic strikes formula at the tactical level across the LOC or even the international borders. In a matter of a few decades, and that is a fairly steep climb down from General K. Sundarji's Blitzkrieg and General V.P. Malik's limited war. In my opinion, dynamic response strategy is a clear reflection of the limits and constraints imposed by Pakistan's robust nuclear capability on India's strategic and operational options, and therefore my preference to call Pakistan's strategic weapons, especially the tactical nuclear weapons, as weapons of peace. When seen against the reality of the gradual erosion and regression of India's politico-military options in the real world of today's South Asian strategic balance, to me it sounds comical and a bit quixotic to hear India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Defense Minister Rajnath Singh threatening that India will chase infiltrators inside Pakistani territory, and for the born-again Hindutva Foreign Minister Jaishankar to say that Pakistan's nuclear capability should be ignored while planning to take Azad Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan. Such statements at the highest political levels can only fall in the category of political rhetoric and bluster, born out of the frustration of seeing one of the world's largest militaries standing deterred because of Pakistan's robust nuclear capability. They forget the fantastic tea that was served to Abhinandan the last time the Indians came chasing terrorists inside Pakistan. That does not, however, mean that the threat should not be taken seriously by Pakistan's conventional forces. I've also been asked to give my views on the future trajectory of the nuclear program. I would like to say that there are extremely competent and professional people at the SPD who have a vision of the future trajectory of Pakistan nuclear program. They are very well versed with the nature of threat and the obtaining geopolitical environments as these exist today and as these are likely to take shape in the future. I have no doubt that they will not only protect the program but also by extension protect Pakistan against all threats and will therefore take the best decisions about the future trajectory in the best interests of Pakistan's security. I have full faith in all my successors who were and are top professionals and who have contributed immensely in taking Pakistan's nuclear capability from strength to strength. We owe them all our gratitude and may Allah bless them all. One thing that is inevitable for sure is that advancements in technology, including what are referred to as emerging technologies, will continue to make their way appropriately in Pakistan's national security calculus. The nuclear program too will be that much richer and stronger by benefiting from these. Also, I would be very happy if an energy deficient Pakistan can benefit from the NCA approved Nuclear Energy Vision 2050, which promises to deliver 42,000 megawatts of nuclear energy by the year 2050. And 42,000 megawatts of energy, mind you, is the rough equivalent of 10 Kalabagh dams. I would like to conclude by recalling that nearly 80 years of geopolitical and military history post World War II reinforces the universal wisdom that nuclear powers do not fight direct wars. I do not see any reason why India and Pakistan would want to defy that logic and risk mutually assured destruction of the worst kind. The illogical logic of MAD is as relevant to South Asia as it is to Europe and across the Atlantic. Pakistan does not have a no first use policy. And I'll repeat that for emphasis, Pakistan does not have a no first use policy. The Indian gung-ho leadership may like to think about it. There should never ever be a doubt in anyone's mind, friend or foe, that Pakistan's operationally ready nuclear capability enables every Pakistani leader the liberty, the dignity, and the courage to look straight into the Indian eye and never blink. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir, for a very insightful talk. Now I will invite our second speaker, Dr. Ansar Pervez, to speak on Pakistan's achievements in peaceful uses of nuclear technology, which will be followed by an interactive session. Dr. Ansar Pervez is a former chairman of the Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission and current advisor to the National Command Authority. He earned his PhD in nuclear engineering and science from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, USA. Dr. Pervez was a faculty member at Purdue University and chaired the IAEA Board of Governors. Currently, he serves on the IAEA Advisory Board for Safety and Nuclear Engineering and chairs the Board of Governors at the National Center for Physics in Islamabad. He is honored with the Halala Imtiaz for his national contributions. You have the floor, sir.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It's a pleasure to be here and be talking to such distinguished audience and some youngsters. And I'm really grateful to you, Naqvi Saab, for inviting me to give a talk. And at the same time, a second thanks for inviting me to give a talk right after Jalal Kadwal. So I feel really honored and really happy. But let me just begin by quoting something that I heard in a meeting on this May 28th, which was also attended by Bhatt Saab. There was one vice chancellor of Bahawalpur University, I guess, and he was attending this meeting. And he came up at the end of it and he said that why do you think that this use of production of nuclear device is not a peaceful use of nuclear technology? It ensures peace more than anything else. As General Saab also said, that this ensures peace. So in a way, you can also call it it's a peaceful application. But right now, I'm going to talk about other peaceful application. But before I do that, let me make one more comment here. And that is that by building this nuclear device, definitely, as Vice Saab has also said, we have put we can say, a bar or a stand against Indian aggression or aggression of our adversary or whatever. But the designs haven't changed for that matter. And I can draw a very simple analogy that if there is a lot of water coming from one direction to the other, flowing towards the downhill side, and you make a big stop, you stop that water, this doesn't mean that water would stop flowing. It will find other ways to come in. And maybe if you look at what is happening, this is exactly what is happening. While we have covered this main offense, we probably have not been able to cover the other paths as well as we should have. Anyway, coming to more directly to what I'm going to talk about. As a matter of fact, what I wanted to say has already been said at least 2 times here, and I think more people here know much more maybe than I do in terms of numbers, in terms of capabilities, and in terms of these pieces of application. But I will go through these things as a matter of routine, but then at the same time, I also try to go back, please. At the same time, also try to add some of the experience that I have had over the years and some of the things that I can see now from having been inside it before and from looking at it from outside, and based on whatever international experience I have in terms of attending IA meetings or going there or being there or reading this literature which everyone has access to. So there might be a few things which might be a little bit beyond what's happening. But we still start with the very basics. Next slide, please. These are our 6 operating plants, has been mentioned many times, 4 at Chashma and 2 at Karachi. The Chashma plants, we all know, 300 megawatts, Karachi plants, 1100 megawatts. And you can see what is written on top of that. And that I think is very important and signifies the steady foursome. They were built based on generation 2 plus technology and harbinger of Pak-China collaboration. This is from where the Chinese collaboration started. And the 2 new ones, larger ones, 1100 megawatt at Karachi, we call them the big and trendy generation 3. And they're gateway to our future nuclear electricity program. As General Saab just said, 42,000 or 40,000 or 30,000 or whatever. This kind of reactor, this kind of generation 3 plant will be the basis of our future program. The overall capacity factor of these plants is 80%. And if a power plant can operate at an 80% capacity factor, this means the planners have done a good job, the designers have done a good job, the builders have done a good job, and the people who are operating and maintaining these plants are also doing a good job. So 80% is like a plant have to shut down for some time anyway for refueling. So 80% is a very good number. The consequence of this, please move on. The installed capacity of these plants is 9%, but our contribution to the generation of electricity is about twice as much, 17%. This is because of the high capacity at which we operate this plant. There are only 12 countries in the world who have more than 6 nuclear power plants. So we are one of the, I would say, top ranking countries as far as that is concerned. How this capacity factor has been achieved, I think if someone were to ask me, I said that very simple 3 rules to operate a power plant or nuclear power plant or any kind of power plant in the first place. Number 1, do not trip. Make sure that you do not trip, or at least make sure that you do not trip again for the same reason. Number 1. Number 2, do a good aging management program. Take care of equipment, not from when you join or not from dates 5 years or 10 years, day before their design. Aging management should be a part of it. If you keep the things operate, aging management will fine. In the United States, if you want to get an extension of a nuclear power plant, they only ask one question. Show us your aging management program for the last 40 years. Now you want an extension for 20 years. Tell us how you did it during the last 40 years. If that is okay, you can do it okay next 20 years. And the third and the most important thing is pay attention to the regulator, because the regulator has a different pair of eyes and they look at these things from the safety perspective, and therefore they can always give you a good advice. So if you can take care of these things, and I think the Ramadi Commission has been trying its best to take care of these things, you will do very well. Now we come to this slide, which is the cost. The cost of electricity generated by nuclear, these 6 nuclear power plants during the year 2023 was 11 to 12 rupees per unit. These are not our numbers. This is the data taken from NEPRA 2023 report. And you can see all the other resources are producing electricity at a much higher cost, not only because the fuel cost is high, but also because the capacity factors are small. Only hydro is cheaper than nuclear. And what does 12 mean? If you are producing electricity at 12 rupees a unit and you give it the bus bar to the distributor, and even if one half of it goes to waste or is stolen, still the last cost to the consumer should be around 24 rupees. And actually, you can see that now people are paying more than 40 or something like that. So if all this electricity were produced at the same rate at which nuclear is producing, things would have been very different. C5, the next power plant, which is going to be constructed, inshallah, is C5. It is under construction. But right now, there are problem of financial support for this power plant because the loan that is required, they require a financial sovereign guarantee for that. And with all these visits from, across Atlantic, people coming and going and all these things happening with regard to our loan to GDP ratio and everything, I think there will be some problem. At one point in time, I thought that maybe we should go on a basis of equity. We should ask China to do a joint venture, in which case we would not have to ask for any loans from China, and they would participate, and there were many other benefits. But this is something which one can look into. Next slide, please. And while we talk of all the good things that happened with regard to nuclear power in Pakistan, we must never forget Canop, which was our first nuclear power plant, which was set up 1965, 137 megawatt CANDU reactors, which operated for 50 years, although the design life was only 30 years, and it operated safely. It operated at half the capacity factors of these Chashma plants and K2, K3, because there was no support from the vendor. So it not only operated, but it also operated on our own. And as a matter of fact, the capability that was developed to operate this power plant, which included spare parts and fuel and everything, it will take maybe another 20, 30 years before we can operate Chashma and K2, K3 with the same level of skill, with the same level of indigenization, and with the same level of expertise. So this was a big starting step. और जैसे कहते हैं ना कि अगर बाबर आजम ने दिल्ली पे कब्जा ना किया तो ताजमहल ही बन सकता था. तो अगर ये कैनोप ना शुरू में होता है तो it would have been very difficult for us to buy or take a reactor with China or build a reactor in cooperation with China, because we did not have any experience. Abhi to we knew at one time, as a matter of fact, we knew more than the Chinese as far as nuclear power is concerned. But at least at that time, a lot of experience. So move on to the next slide, which is the vision that General Kidwai just talked about. And as a matter of fact, those of us who are present here, those of you who are present here, they must also know that a lot of time PAC people talk not only in Pakistan, but also in Guyana and elsewhere, that we will build 8,800 megawatt of electricity by 2030. And it is not likely to happen now. The best that you could do maybe by 2030 is around 4,500 megawatt. But if you look at another thing, that this target of 8,800 was given under a midterm energy security plan of 2005. And at that time, it was thought that Pakistan's electricity consumption will increase to 162,000 by 2030, out of which nuclear had to produce 8,800. Now, the current estimate is that Pakistan will produce, if it gets lucky, on a high growth rate, it will be producing 71,000 megawatt by 2034. This is the calculation which the government of Pakistan has done. And even for that, they say if you want to go from where you are now to producing 71,000 megawatt by 2034, then you will require a investment of $72 billion in COPEX, that is capital, and OPEX in operation and maintenance. So what I'm trying to say here is that this is a sort of chicken and egg thing. Unless the country develops industrially, unless there is an economic growth, unless there is money available in the country, you cannot build nuclear power plant, and you cannot build power plant. And because you cannot build power plant, because you do not have enough energy, because you do not have enough cheap energy, the industry doesn't grow. So this is a situation, I think, as all of you understand, that Pakistan is not tackled. Our next slide here is what is called Indicative Generation Capacity Expansion Plan. This is issued by NEPRA. Very interestingly, when these issued this plan about 2 years ago, there was no mention of C5 in it. तो फिर क्या हुआ, फिर PAC वाले tried their best to argue with them and they said you do not fit in our system क्योंकि the interest rate that we are using for the capital cost of this plant is 10%. तो अगर 10% का हम interest rate लगाते हैं तो nuclear power they become very expensive. We told them we got these loans from China at much smaller rate. So at that, and what we are doing actually is also much smaller. Then maybe because of all the pleading that we made, और शायद कुछ चांद तारों के जोर पे ultimately they included C5 in their plan. But the new plan 2034 plan, next 10-year plan they have come out, only has C5 coming up in by 2031 and no other nuclear during the next 10 years. So this is the state of affairs as far as the government is concerned, as far as their energy planning is concerned. So next up, the next slide, please. And while we can look at it with all the projections for nuclear power that we are going to make, let's also have a look at the global nuclear power. Because of course, as you know, because you are in this area, you know that now mostly the nuclear power plants are being built in the eastern or southern side of the world, in China, India, Russia, a few, and Pakistan, of course, Bangladesh, but not in the West, not in Europe, not in America, not in the United States, not in Canada, not for the last 20 years. And as a matter of fact, the global production of nuclear energy during the last 20 years has been static with small fluctuations. During the last 20 years, the global production of nuclear energy has not increased. Consequently, the energy production, the nuclear energy production, which about 20 years ago was 17% of the total, is now around 9.5%. Number one. Number two, the cost of energy. If you just look at the total cost of the energy, recently a plant is under construction in Vogtle, South Carolina, USA. It will be completed soon at a total cost of $25 billion. Per megawatt cost is $11 million. $11 million per megawatt. In Finland, a plant is nearing completion, $7.3 million per megawatt. The Bangladesh plant, Rupur, which Russia is building for them, is $5.2 million per megawatt. Fortunately, ours was slightly less, about $4.3 million per megawatt, that is K2 and K3. But there are two countries which are definitely making much cheaper nuclear power plants. One is China and the other is India. India, because they make it indigenously. They don't have to go outside to have another country cross the border and build the power plant from them. Maybe Russia might also be building its own indigenous plant cheaply, but for that data is not available, at least not in the open world. So the point that I'm trying to make is that although indigenization may be initially expensive, the first nuclear power plant that China built indigenously was very expensive, and it also took 13 years, 14 years to build. But they built it, and now they are building very cheap. India, the same trajectory. Pakistan has all the ingredients, as was also said here, in different locations, different capacities, different parts, different things you can do, but we have not been able to put it together and to build an indigenous nuclear power plant, even a small size or a big size or whatever. Of course, big size is more difficult, small size is easier. And there are, of course, other things to follow. For example, India, I think, did a good job. They can build their own, but they're also importing. Why? To learn technology, to know what the other world is doing, so that you can improve your own design. So if you build your own plant, this doesn't mean that you will then be counting only on your power plant, but you must do it if you want to go nuclear, because it is not clear. As a matter of fact, it's quite obvious that the cost of the nuclear power plants is not going to go down, because I don't think that Europe and America are very much interested in building nuclear power plants. Although you might know that in Dubai, टाइम है सर मेरे पास 10 मिनट और. Although, in Dubai, a meeting was held last year, COP28, and where they decided that they said we are going to build, we are going to increase the nuclear capacity 3 times. So by 2050, right now it's around 400 terawatts. So by 2050, it will be 1200 terawatts. If it's going to be 1200 terawatts by 2050, and out of this 400 which is operating today, almost half will be shut down because all the plants in Europe and America are more than 30 years old. So almost half of these will be shut down. So you are going to require another 10 terawatts, 10,000, 10 terawatts, 10,000 gigawatts. 10 terawatts means 10,000 gigawatts means 50, and you have to build in 20 years. You have to start in 20 years because it takes 6 years to complete. So by 2050, you want to have those main plants. In the next 20 years, you want to start 50 nuclear power plants of 1,000 megawatt each across the globe. And during the last 6 months, nothing much has happened. The current average is 3 or 4. And you're lucky if like it's 7 or 8. So it's not going to happen. There are a lot of things about nuclear. But how the future of nuclear in the world is going to be a different thing. But the problems that Pakistan will have, or in addition to capital, with the way our population is increasing, with the way our sites are getting occupied, with people, with the way this concrete is coming all over the place, pretty soon we may have difficulties in finding sites for the nuclear power plant if we cannot manage have control of these sites. And also, ultimately, we might also have to look at this thing as to what will happen to the fuel. Right now, we have a contract with China where China is bound to provide us all the fuel for the lifetime of the nuclear power plant that is operating. But we have to have our own uranium, whether it comes from the ground or it comes from the water. This is another area where we need to pay attention to. So in summary, the future of nuclear engineering and nuclear powers lies in good planning, in having a smart planning, and not in a band-aid solutions or firefighting or whatever. And of course, an industrial growth that will go along with this thing. तो और आखिरी बात यही है, जिससे शायद खुदाई साहब भी बहुत अच्छी तरह से वाकिफ हैं, कि किसी डेवलपिंग कंट्री में हमारी तरह जो है ना न्यूक्लियर पावर प्लांट बनाना इश्क का मामला है. अगर आप इस्तदलाल के घोड़े दौड़ाते रहेंगे, अगर आप रीजन देखते रहेंगे, अगर आप ये कहेंगे कि जी ये बात लॉजिकल है, इलॉजिकल है, तो न्यूक्लियर पावर प्लांट नहीं लगने लगा इस मुल्क में, नहीं लगेंगे जब तक कि आप उस लेवल पे ना पहुंच जाएं कि जस्ट मुझे लगाना है. और हिस्ट्री हैज प्रूवन यू राइट. जो प्लांट हमने लगा लिए वो बड़े अच्छे चल रहे हैं और बड़े सस्ते चल रहे हैं. और बाद दफ़ा जब कोई बड़ी डिबेट होती है तो उसकी मिसाल मैं ऐसे देता हूँ, जैसे अगर आपने अपना घर बनाना होता है ना, तो आप सोचते हैं यार अगर मेरे पास रिसोर्सेज होंगे मैं बनाऊंगा. स्टार्ट इट. जब आप स्टार्ट कर लेते हैं बन ही जाता है, और 10 साल के बाद आप कहते हैं यार आई टुक अ वेरी गुड डिसीजन 10 years बैक और 20 years बैक. सेम थिंग इज ट्रू विद न्यूक्लियर. तो सर ये तो मुझे थोड़ा सा न्यूक्लियर के बारे में कहना था. आगे अगर आप चले, अच्छा ये एक छोटी सी वही है, आई थिंक कोई इसमें नई बात नहीं है. वापस चलें एक स्लाइड, थोड़ा हम स्किप कर गए. तो ये रेडिएशंस हैं, आपको पता है अल्फा बीटा गैमा रेडिएशन तीनों उसमें से बाहर आती हैं, जिससे हम सारा काम करते हैं, जिसको हम कहते हैं रेडिएशन करना. अल्फा रेज जो होते हैं ना हैवी होते हैं और ज़्यादा दूर नहीं जाते. बीटा रेज जरा लाइट हैं, दे कैन गो फास्टर. एंड गैमा रेज आर लाइक लेजर लाइट्स, दे कैन ट्रेवल लॉन्ग डिस्टेंसेस. तो दे कैन पास थ्रू पेपर, अल्फा पार्टिकल्स कैन नॉट पास थ्रू दैम. तो ये एक तरह से हम इसको कहते हैं कि हमारे पास आर्मरी है हमारे पास ऑफ वेट ऑफ डिफरेंट मटेरियल्स. आगे चलें नेक्स्ट, अगला नेक्स्ट. आई थिंक उसके बाद मुझे कुछ ज़्यादा नहीं कहना. ये सारी एप्लीकेशंस हैं विच यू कैन सी. चलें नेक्स्ट. तो ये कैंसर के पेशेंट्स हैं जो हम ट्रीट करते हैं अपने हॉस्पिटल में 1.2 मिलियन. और यहाँ पे मैं एक बात मैं ज़रूर कहना चाहूँगा, चैट टाइम्स अभी 480,000 न्यू पेशेंट्स हैं हमारे पास हॉस्पिटल में अपने, एंड वी ट्रीट ओनली 70% ऑफ द टोटल, विच मीन्स पाकिस्तान में तकरीबन 600,000 न्यू पेशेंट्स हैं जो हॉस्पिटल में आ रहे हैं कैंसर के. और वर्ल्ड हेल्थ की रिपोर्ट है कि डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज में 1/3 ओनली गो टू द हॉस्पिटल. Even in the United States, they say 10% persons never go to the hospital. Vaccination भी नहीं करवाते कई American. So you can imagine the number of new cancer patients, and you can imagine the load that the hospitals will have to take. But Pakistan के जो medical centers हैं, we are not alone. PAC, there are other in the private sector and government sectors also who are treating and who have the same facilities. Next, please. ये एग्रीकल्चर की क्रॉप्स हैं, वी ऑलरेडी टॉक्ड अबाउट, पीपल टॉक्ड अबाउट दिस. चले नेक्स्ट. ये डिफरेंट नॉन डिस्ट्रक्टिव टेस्टिंग के मेथड्स हैं, वाटर डैम्स एटसेट्रा. आपको पता है शालीमार बाग में एक दफ़ा देयर वाज अ ब्लॉकेज एंड थ्रू दिस रेडिएशन वी वर एबल टू टेल के वेयर द ब्लॉकेज इज. नेक्स्ट. And this is almost the second last slide. But as one takes advantage of the nuclear technology, and one must also ensure, and I think PSC can take some pride in the fact that we have paid enough attention to this, that is the safety of nuclear power plants, proper shielding wherever radioactive material is used, accountability of radioactive materials, nuclear waste management, IA safeguards, and security. And I think people have already talked about it. Chale, next. ये सस्टेनेबल गोल्स का है. अभी तो हमारे पास टाइम नहीं है, बट इफ आई एम टॉकिंग टू अ जूनियर्स पीपल कभी, तो फिर मैं उनसे कहता हूँ कि अच्छा मुझे बताएं कि इफ यू लुक एट द फर्स्ट वन, नो पॉवर्टी, डू यू थिंक दैट ऑल ऑफ दिस थिंग दैट वी हैव सेड आर कंट्रीब्यूटिंग टू दिस? इफ दे आर मेकिंग ए गुड कंट्रीब्यूशन, वी विल पुट अ व्हाइट टिक. इफ दे आर मेकिंग सम कंट्रीब्यूशन, वी विल पुट अ ब्लैक टिक. एंड इफ दे आर पुटिंग नो कंट्रीब्यूशन, देन विल पुट अ एक्स. तो आप जल्दी जल्दी टिक कर दें तो पता चल जाएगा कि कौन कौन से टिक आ रहे हैं. प्लीज कीप ऑन मूविंग. Define agree slide. Next. Next. बस वो हो रही है ना मूव, उस पे वो टिक बनते जा रहे हैं ना. वेयर वी थिंक दैट न्यूक्लियर टेक्नोलॉजी इज कंट्रीब्यूटिंग एंड वेयर वी थिंक इट्स नॉट कंट्रीब्यूटिंग. बट ये एक अच्छी वो एक्सरसाइज है करके. सो थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर प्रोवाइडिंग मी दिस अपॉर्चुनिटी.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is now open for an interactive session. First, we will address questions from our in-person participants. Meanwhile, I kindly request our online participants to write their questions in the chat box. Once we have addressed the in-person questions, we will then engage with our online participants. Please keep your questions concise and avoid lengthy comments to ensure everybody has a chance to participate. Now, I request Ambassador Naqvi to moderate this session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mariam. Very illuminating and enlightening presentations by Youm-e-Takbeer and Dr. Ansar Parvez. In my introductions, I made a couple of omissions which I want to correct now. I recognize the presence of Brigadier Zahir Kazmi, Director General, Arms Control and Disarmament Affairs at the SPD, and Mrs. Lubna Khudwai, who has joined us, and it's very kind and gracious of her to be with us. And some new, some people who came later, like Mr. Istiqbal Mehdi, Mr. Khalid Rahim, and some of the other friends who have eventually landed up here after maybe a long struggle of getting and finding the place. Anyway, I now open the floor for question answer, and kindly identify yourself. And as was said earlier, that the question should be concise and very focused. Dr. Nasser Hafiz, I recognize you, sir.
And my question is not going to overshadow I think, the celebration of our 26th Youm-e-Takbeer Day. I do recognize that we are here to commemorate that. But taking the advantage of the presence of General Kidwai, because on the space for nuclear strategy, there's very limited resource available, and most of the terms which we normally hear and use in our writing is referred to your deliberations and your expressions. Sir, at the end of your speech, you said that Pakistan do not have a no first use policy. But at the same time, we have a quid pro quo policy, that is QPQ and QPQ plus. So in my understanding, QPQ is a retaliatory policy. Do you wait for your opponent to do something, and in reaction, you're going to do something in the same domain? Or at the plus side, you will add some more domains or increase the level of your response. So in one sense, it is basically a no first use of force. At the conventional level, you will allow the enemy to use something, or come out and take some action, and then you're going to respond to that. So can you please clarify that, is that not a no first use of force, not the nuclear weapons, but conventional force once we talk of the QPQ?
Thank you, Nasir. I think you mixed up two things. Let me clarify that. That's why you asked me a question. No first use pertains to the nuclear segment, to the nuclear forces. वो entirely nuclear weapons के लिए अप्लाई करती है. इसका कन्वेंशनल डोमेन से कोई ताल्लुक नहीं है. कन्वेंशनल डोमेन में कभी ये नहीं सुनेंगे आप कि नो फर्स्ट यूज आर्मी कर रही है, या पाकिस्तान एयरफोर्स का वो है पॉलिसी ऑफ नो फर्स्ट यूज. दिस इज क्लियरली फॉर द न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स. यूज और नो फर्स्ट यूज ऑफ न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स. क्विड प्रो को प्लस जो है, इट्स नॉट क्विड प्रो को, इट इज क्विड प्रो को प्लस. That is the policy of the Pakistan's conventional forces as distinct from the nuclear forces. Do you understand? वो है for a जैसे ये surgical strikes हैं, for example. For surgical strikes, Pakistan has said that if you come in with a strike, Balakot being an example, the conventional forces will retaliate quid pro quo plus, not the nuclear forces. So there are two separate domains. The quid pro quo plus policy applies to the conventional domain for limited strikes. It's not even for a all-out war. Hypothetically, if there was an all-out war, Pakistan will not say that we are going to be responding with quid pro quo plus, because then that is an entirely different strategy is required for fighting a all-out war. The quid pro quo plus policy is applicable only to limited strikes that India may undertake, as it did, and therefore the response of the conventional forces remaining within the realm of limited strikes will be of a degree higher than what the Indians came in with. तो इसको आप न्यूक्लियर के साथ ना मिक्स करें. NFU is purely applicable to the nuclear forces. It's a nuclear policy. So conventional domain में no first use नहीं है, न्यूक्लियर फोर्सेस में क्विड प्रो को प्लस नहीं है. ये दो इनको सेपरेट कर दें. I don't know how did this confusion arise. होना नहीं चाहिए था.
Problem is that, sir, whenever you speak, we try to take that this is going to be a nuclear subject. So I think if QPQ is used by yourself, then most of us try to, think that is a portion of the nuclear strategy or one kind of an expression of that. So that is the confusion.
I'm sorry if I've confused the issue. I mean, I'll take responsibility if I've confused the issue, but because they are both integrated. इंटीग्रेटेड स्ट्रेटजी तो है ना, न्यूक्लियर स्ट्रेटजी, मिलिट्री स्ट्रेटजी एक उसमें थीम में चलती है, वो थीम में चल रही पाकिस्तान में भी. लेकिन उसमें फिर आप देख लें कि क्विड प्रो क्वो प्लस की जो स्ट्रेटजी है वो, बिकॉज व्हाट हैज हैपेंड इज दैट इंडिया का, मैंने यहाँ बताया या शायद सुबह भी बताया, एक आधा और फोरम में बताया, you see the historical perspective of not very long ago, just about 4 decades की. 86, 87 was about the peak in terms of hit strategy, offensive strategy India की, सुंदर जी की जो मैंने कहा ना, that was the strategy in which they felt very powerful and they brought in all the forces, military, army, air force, navy, complete deployment के साथ, and the objective was, of course they denied, when they had to back off, they denied कि नहीं हमारा ये तो ख्याल नहीं था इरादा. But military, particularly the army and the air force, which comes to your borders in full battle gear, full ammunition, in tanks, in small arms, in artillery, in air force, forward air bases, main operating bases, FOB, MOB वगैरह. What is one to make out of it? That he's coming for an attack. तो पाकिस्तान ने उसको रिस्पॉन्ड किया कन्वेंशनल डोमेन में by counter deployments. And the objective of their, whether it is through war games that we examine or whether declared, the objective at that time and for quite a few decades thereafter, till 98 perhaps happened, was to come in with standard three efforts. I hope I'm not getting too technical now, operationally speaking. A main effort, a secondary effort, and an auxiliary effort. ये standard 3 efforts इनके बनते थे planning में. And the objective was always lines of communication severe कर दो. Pakistan north south में divide कर दो. Move in with such blitzkrieg tactics that you go and hit somewhere around Sakhar or Gotki or something, and you cut Pakistan into two. ये थी peak strategy. पावर का नशा कह लो, ठीक है. जैसे एक ना, जैसे जैसे न्यूक्लियर स्ट्रेंथ यहाँ पे बढ़ती गई, वो स्ट्रेटजी गिरती गई स्टेप बाय स्टेप, टू अ पॉइंट जब 98 हुआ, वे 98 यौम तकबीर हुआ, उसमें तो फिर ओवरटली आ गया ना. इनिशियली होते हैं ब्लफ कर रहा है, ब्लफ कर रहा है, पता नहीं 2 हफ्ते हो गए, करेगा नहीं करेगा, बट इवेंचुअली हो गए. ऑल क्रेडिट टू दीज जेंटलमैन हु आर सिटिंग हियर, बट साहब हैं, ये से हैं. तो उसके बाद उन्होंने टेपर करना शुरू. पहला टेपरिंग क्या हुई, ब्लिट्जक्रीग टैक्टिक्स से लिमिटेड वॉर. अभी वो लिमिटेड वॉर में आ गए, एक स्टेप नीचे आ गए. फिर आगे कुछ नहीं बात बनी, पराक्रम में भी उन्होंने डिप्लॉय कर दिया, एंड 10 महीने ख्वार होके चले गए वापस. किस चीज ने वापस भेजा उनको, न्यूक्लियर वॉर के खतरे में. थर्ड स्टेज में अब मुंबई आ जाए 2008 में, नाइदर हेयर नॉट देयर, पार्शल मोबिलाइजेशन की, उनका दिल नहीं था उसमें वॉर जाने में, लेकिन फिर भी कुछ दिखावा. फिर बिपिन रावत साहब आ गए 2016 में, स्ट्रेटजिक स्ट्राइक्स, जिसका नाम उनको पता था ना हमें पता था कि हुई किधर है. और फिर 19 में आ गए वो बालाकोट के उसमें, और बालाकोट सबके सामने क्या हुआ, उन्होंने क्या किया, हमने किया. उसमें मैं कहता हूँ इट वाज अ क्लासिकल डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन ऑफ अ क्विड प्रो क्वो प्लस. द पीएफ सॉर्टेड देम आउट एंड गेव देम बैक विद अ प्लस. ठीक है, यू विल एग्री ऑन दैट. इसमें कहीं भी एनएफयू नहीं आया, इसमें कहीं भी न्यूक्लियर का जिक्र नहीं आया, नो फर्स्ट यूज. लेकिन माइंड पे न्यूक्लियर वाज प्लेइंग ऑन द माइंड ऑफ एवरीबडी, ऑल द वे फ्रॉम वॉशिंगटन टू दिल्ली एंड टू हियर, कि ये गड़बड़ ना हो जाए. बस इनिशियल क्लियरेंस दे के, वो क्या नाम है उसका, व्हाइट मुस्टाच वाला जो उनका अमेरिकन है, नेशनल सिक्योरिटी, हाँ नेशनल सिक्योरिटी एडवाइजर, हाँ बोल्टन, उसने कह दिया था इंडिया को, गो हेड, ये तुम्हारा हक बनता है, रिटेलिएट करो. जब किया रिटेलिएशन, पाकिस्तान ने काउंटर रिटेलिएशन किया, जैसे रोके इनफ. तो ये इंटायरली कन्वेंशनल डोमेन का वो है. NFU is no first use policy, which I have said here twice. I've repeated for emphasis. ये जो कह रहे हैं ना हजरात, स्पेशली मिस्टर जयशंकर, राजनाथ सिंह ने तो कहा ना कि आप अंदर जाकर, हम अंदर घुस के मारेंगे, तो लास्ट टाइम घुस के मारा था तो उसका नतीजा उनके सामने. अब ये जयशंकर साहब कह रहे हैं कि आप न्यूक्लियर कैपेबिलिटी इग्नोर कर दें, और हम जाके गिलगित बल्तिस्तान भी लेंगे, आजाद कश्मीर भी ले लेंगे, POK. अब ये नैरेटिव डेवलप हो रहा है. आई फील सॉरी फॉर द मैन, a qualified professional foreign service officer with a great reputation otherwise, with a pedigree. बाप उसका के सुब्रमण्यम, वेरी रिस्पेक्टेड मैन, थिंकर. वो हिंदुत्व की अलाइनमेंट में ले आए अपने आप को, छोड़ दो न्यूक्लियर को. ही इज टॉकिंग लाइक अ थर्ड रेट पॉलिटिशियन, कि इसको न्यूक्लियर का फॉरगेट इट, विल जस्ट गो एंड टेक आजाद कश्मीर. तो इस किस्म की बकबक के लिए वन हैज टू से प्लीज रिमेंबर, आई सेड पाकिस्तान की न्यूक्लियर पॉलिसी नो फर्स्ट यूज बिलीव नहीं करती. So it's a kind of a reminder to them, think about it. We don't believe in no first use, implying that Pakistan's nuclear policy is very much an active policy.
Yeah. Thank you. Next, Doctor, I wanted to bring in Mr. Parvez Bhatt for some comments, because you are here.
and other government organizations. Atomic Energy Commission do very well, and I always give the credit to Dr. I.H. Usmani. Dr. I.H. Usmani, I'll take a few minutes in introducing Dr. I.H. Usmani. Dr. I.H. Usmani did his PhD from England and decided to come to Pakistan in 1964-65. He could have stayed there, earned dollars and pounds, but he decided to come here, and he was the second chairman. The first chairman was a typical government individual. So Dr. Usmani he came and he started giving lectures on what good management practices. And he would go to different colleges and schools and institutions and give lectures. And when he became the chairman, he said that I will not let the Atomic Energy Commission be a typical government organization. It will be run as an European or American organization. And therefore, we who had joined the Atomic Energy Commission as young engineers, after listening to his speeches, I had a great future. I could have stayed in the army. I was in the army at that time. I left the army as a student and joined the Atomic Energy Commission, all because of Dr. Usmani's speeches. And he said, we will make Pakistan as modern as possible. And he negotiated the agreement, the contract for the Canap plant. Had he not signed the contract for Canap, we would not have achieved anything. Canap is the backbone of all our achievements in all areas. And he also told the Canadians that I will send a team of engineers and scientists. And 10 engineers and scientists came from on the design side, and I was one of them. And 5 of us were Bengalis, East Pakistanis. And 15 came for operation and maintenance. And they worked on the nuclear power plants over there. I and the design team worked on the design of Canap, and that was our secret weapon. This group, the group that operated, learned how to operate a nuclear power plant, and the group that learned how to design a nuclear power plant. And I also, therefore, I always give Dr. I.H. Usmani the credit of making Atomic Energy Commission a modern organization. Then the second thing he said, that I would like to make the buildings and the laboratories as modern as possible. He took a part of the building in Lahore from PCSIR and converted it into the Atomic Energy Center, AEMC. And he got the windows changed, he got the floors changed. He said it will be, when a person steps into it, he would feel as if he's in Germany or England or America. I don't want him. And then he increased our salaries also. And he changed the recruitment procedure also. And he would interact with us engineers and scientists. And he encouraged us to start making things ourselves. And we established small workshops, electrical workshops, mechanical workshops, nuclear medicine, agriculture, all in that Lahore center were started by him. And I always think that had Dr. Usmani been not the chairman of the Atomic Energy Commission, we would have been like another WAPDA, importing things and asking others to, and they still. And we, mashallah, we do our own civil works, we do our own maintenance, we produce things ourselves. We are exporters. The Atomic Energy Commission is an exporter. Very few people know that. With CERN, we have signed a contract and we manufacture things in Pakistan and export it to them. And therefore, the Atomic Energy Commission is an example for other organizations in the country to learn and to follow. And we could make the nuclear weapon only because we had developed all the facilities ourselves. We had developed manpower when we were assigned that job, and they knew what to do and what to develop and how to proceed, and we could achieve whatever we achieved.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vatsab. This is extremely interesting. And the perspective, the background of the creation of the Atomic Energy Commission. Thank you so much for your comments. Dr. Adil Sultan, I give you the floor.
Sir, thank you very much for the invitation. Sir, thank you to all the scientists, diplomats, and of course, General Kidwai, कि जो आप लोग ने effort किया, contribution किया, national security, and that is why we are here celebrating this occasion. एक favor और sir आपसे चाहिए है, you should write a book, sir. एक किताब लिख दें जो आपकी हम उसको बाइबल के तौर पे यूज करें, बिकॉज बहुत सारी चीजें हैं जो जिस तरह से आपने एवोल्यूशन की बात की है, not many people know this and not many people will know it because जब तक वो आपसे सुनेंगे नहीं, डायरेक्ट आपका पढ़ेंगे नहीं, तो नहीं होगा. आई थिंक दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर द नेक्स्ट जनरेशन ऑफ स्कॉलर्स कि कहाँ थे हम, किस तरह से शुरू हुआ और ये न्यूक्लियर डिटरेंस का लॉजिक कहाँ से डेवलप हुआ, किस तरह से हमने इसको कंटेक्चुअलाइज किया अपने रीजन के हिसाब से. Why I'm saying this is कि आजकल जो ओपन सोर्स इंफॉर्मेशन इतनी ज़्यादा है तो एक्सेस वेस्टर्न लिटरेचर का बहुत ज़्यादा है, तो इट्स वेरी इजी टू ग्रास्प दोस कॉन्सेप्ट्स और उसको हम इम्प्लीमेंट करने की कोशिश करते हैं, वो फिर प्रॉब्लमैटिक हो जाता है. एक दो चीज़ें सर क्लैरिफिकेशन के लिए, टेकिंग एडवांटेज ऑफ योर प्रेजेंस ओवर हियर, जो ये कंफ्यूजन हमेशा से, आई डोंट हैव एनी कंफ्यूजन, आई हैव हर्ड यू मल्टीपल टाइम्स, और मैं वही जो आप बताते हैं हम आगे एक्सप्लेन करने की कोशिश करते हैं कि परसेप्शन या मिसपरसेप्शन है. वी हैव मूव फ्रॉम क्रेडिबल मिनिमम डिटरेंस टू फुल स्पेक्ट्रम डिटरेंस. नैन्सी की स्टेटमेंट्स आर वेरी क्लियर कि विद इन द एम्बिट ऑफ क्रेडिबल मिनिमम डिटरेंस फुल स्पेक्ट्रम डिटरेंस है, लेकिन आपने भी आज एक दो मरतबा कहा कि ट्रांजिशन फ्रॉम क्रेडिबल मिनिमम डिटरेंस टू फुल स्पेक्ट्रम डिटरेंस, लेकिन फिर बाद में आपने कहा लार्जर फिलॉसफी उसकी वही है उसमें. तो एक तो इसको कर दें. सेकेंड सर, जो one issue is that about second strike capability. I've heard you are very clear about that, and I believe that we have a second strike capability and we should, because nuclear deterrence को आपने reinforce करना है तो आपको belief और conviction के साथ कहना चाहिए. हाँ, किस तरह की है, that doesn't matter. Post 1998 we didn't have delivery systems, the deterrence was in place because we demonstrated that. So I do also understand some of my colleagues says कि a short second strike capability. Now this is short second strike capability वाला concept, yes, रिसोर्सेज होंगे जब होगा, न्यूक्लियर पावर्ड सबमरीन जब बनाएंगे, या कोल्ड वॉर के अंदर जिस तरह से कॉन्स्ट्रक्ट था, हमने अपने साउथ एशिया में कंटेक्चुअलाइज करना. आपने जो सारा कुछ फ्रेमवर्क आपने बताया है, आर कैपेबिलिटी इज अगेंस्ट इंडिया. So whatever limited capability we have, we must demonstrate that, and we should have confidence in that. This is a second strike capability, and like you said, full spectrum उसका है. लेकिन जब हम कुछ नेवी वालों से भी कुछ बात करते हो, जरा शाये हुए होते हैं कि जी सेकंड स्ट्राइक पे बात ना करें आप उस पर. Nuclear deterrence is all about conviction and bring that kind of a degree of transparency to convince your adversary that we have the capability if you mess with us. ना तो लेकिन जब शायनस आती, इस तरह की चीजें आती, तो वो थोड़ा सा एक उसमें बिलीफ का वो आता है कि शायद वो नहीं है. तो अगर आप इसके अंदर भी वो चीज क्लियर कर सके, सो आई विल बी वेरी ग्रेटफुल सर. थैंक यू वेरी मच वंस अगेन.
You, Adil, for first of all your suggestion to write a book. Thank you, noted. अगर मैं खुल के बुक लिख दूं ना, और दूसरे एंड पे मैं दोबारा DGSPT बैठा हूं और ये बुक मेरे सामने आए, आई विल नेवर क्लियर इट. But point is noted. Okay. Your next observation है या question है regarding seeking some clarity on the moving from credible minimum deterrence to full spectrum deterrence. Again, I hope I have not confused the issue. क्रेडिबल मिनिमम डिटरेंस इज एन ओवरआर्चिंग कॉन्सेप्ट। उसमें मैंने सुबह बोला, इधर जाहिर है ये सब्जेक्ट और था, सब्जेक्ट कुछ और था, इसलिए उसको मैंने मॉडिफ टॉपिक को वो नहीं छेड़ा जो वहां था इपरी में। इंग्लिश इज वेरी सिंपल। क्रेडिबल होना चाहिए, मिनिमम होना चाहिए, मैक्सिमम नहीं होना चाहिए, मीडियम नहीं होना चाहिए। सो मिनिमम मीडियम मैक्सिमम के बीच में मिनिमम होना चाहिए in terms of affordability, because numbers beyond a certain number, they don't make कोई लॉजिक नहीं बनती। वी आर नॉट रशिया एंड यूएसए 15,000 बना देंगे। सो क्रेडिबिलिटी लाजमी है, मिनिमम नंबर लाजमी है, और उसके इफेक्ट जो है वो डिटरेंस के हैं। सही। व्हेन वी से कि इसको अब हमने ट्रांजिट किया फुल स्पेक्ट्रम डिटरेंस में। Full spectrum deterrence is a reflection of the capability which has been evolved or has been developed in multiple dimensions, or essentially two dimensions में कहते हैं, horizontal, vertical, to simplify things. Horizontal में आपके इंटर सर्विसेज फोर्सेस आ जाते हैं, स्ट्रेटेजिक फोर्सेस, और वर्टिकल में आ जाती है आपकी रेंज इन टर्म्स ऑफ हाउ फार यू कैन गो, इन टर्म्स ऑफ अगेन ट्राई सर्विसेज, चाहे वो पीएफ हम एएफएससी की बात कर रहे हैं, चाहे वो एएसएफसी की बात करें, चाहे वो एनएसएफसी की बात कर रहे हैं, दैट इज अ फंक्शन ऑफ यील्ड्स एंड रेंजेस। लेकिन when I say remaining within the larger philosophy of credible minimum deterrence, वो एफएसडी को भी अंडरलाइन एप्लीकेबल कर होता है कि फुल स्पेक्ट्रम तो हो गया, फुल स्पेक्ट्रम डजंट मीन कि यू हैव गॉन berserk in developing weapons. They are still guided by the logic of credibility. जो भी वेपन आपने फुल स्पेक्ट्रम में बनाया है तीनों लेवल्स पे, स्ट्रेटेजिक, ऑपरेशनल एंड टैक्टिकल, उसकी लॉजिक क्रेडिबिलिटी की वही एप्लीकेबल है, मिनिमम नंबर्स की वही एप्लीकेबल है, चाहे वो गौरी है, चाहे वो एयरफोर्स है, चाहे वो नेवी है, चाहे वो कोई भी है, शाहीन 3 है, मिनिमम नंबर्स that will meet your deterrence requirements. So transitioning of the credible deterrence to full spectrum deterrence and yet being guided by the larger philosophy of credible deterrence simply implies that you have achieved the horizontal and vertical reach as a force, and yet you are remaining being guided by the same credibility, same minimum numbers, and effects generated are deterrence. The नहीं, इनका एक और था पॉइंट है सेकंड स्ट्राइक का। इसमें आप frankly I don't think there was much of a question. It was an observation that naval officers are reluctant to talk about it. I would wholeheartedly encourage them not to talk about it, in the sense because not every naval officer is part of the strategic force. The strategic force is NSFC. Somebody who is playing an operational role in NSFC would know, should know, but not talk about it for classified reasons. But the conventional naval officers who are not in the loop, like ASFC, like Air Force, AFSC में आपके selected लोग हैं जो कि AFSC में इंडक्ट होते हैं, चले जाते हैं, बाद में पोस्टिंग्स हो जाती हैं आगे पीछे, लेकिन जो नॉलेज है वो अपने साथ ले जाते हैं। तो एनएसएफसी सेकंड स्ट्राइक वालों के भी यही लॉजिक है कि limited number of officers or men, whoever, are inducted into the Naval Strategic Force Command, they would know the reality on ground or at sea or under sea. But those who are not, जिनका वो काम नहीं है, जो नॉर्मल अपने डिस्ट्रॉयर्स पे चल रहे हैं, अपने फ्रिगेट्स में जा रहे हैं, अपने सबमरीन में जा रहे हैं, who are not part of the NSFC, they probably would be shy, because उनके पास वो नॉलेज नहीं होगी, और अगर होगी भी, आई थिंक दे शुड कीप इट टू देमसेल्व्स। सही। तो इसमें ये ऑब्जर्वेशन थी आपकी। अगेन आई वुड से अगर एम्बिग्यूटी रखना चाहते हैं, इट इज स्ट्रिक्टली इन लाइन विद द ओवरऑल पॉलिसी पाकिस्तान की एम्बिग्यूटी, लेकिन ये कि आई थिंक वी मेड इट वेरी क्लियर एंड वी नीड टू मेक इट वेरी क्लियर, particularly given the mood of these, the leadership in India, the Hindutva leadership, we should not be apologetic about it. They should be answered in the same language, perhaps in the same language plus, if I may use the quid pro quo plus वाला, तो वो होना चाहिए. एंड दैट इज बिकॉज अब ये क्या रह गई, ये सिर्फ जमानी जंग रहा है. उनकी हिम्मत नहीं है, ना उनकी कैपेबिलिटी है आपको उस किस्म का एग्रेशन जो ब्लिट्सक्रीग वाली बात होती थी, या इवन लिमिटेड वॉर, दे हैव टोन डाउन. अब मैंने कहा ना, वो आ रही है डायनेमिक रिस्पॉन्स स्ट्रेटजी आ रही है. उसी सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक्स को लिमिटेड, उसको मॉडिफाई करके इन वन फॉर्म और द अदर, परहैप्स इन अ वे टू जस्टिफाई देयर एग्जिस्टेंस. आफ्टर ऑल ये पता नहीं चौथी लार्जेस्ट आर्मी है कि पता नहीं तीसरी है दुनिया में नंबर रैंकिंग के हिसाब से. एयरफोर्स भी कोई इसी किस्म की तीसरी चौथी लार्जेस्ट एयरफोर्स है. और वो frustrated है because they are unable to deliver on the original political objectives. और अब उनके सामने पॉलिटिकल ऑब्जेक्टिव एक और, एक इम्पॉसिबिलिटी ये हजरात डाल रहे हैं पॉलिटिकल लोग जो है लीडरशिप. पीओके गिलगित बल्तिस्तान अभी वो खामा खा का मंत्रा बना है, बट नोइंग फुली वेल दे डोंट हैव द कैपेबिलिटी एंड द कैपेसिटी टू डू इट. सो मैं कहता है 2 पोस्ट वो ले नहीं सकते एक में, एंड दे आर टॉकिंग ऑफ टेकिंग 2 प्रोविंसेस. अंदाजा करें. तो ये अदर देन रिटोरिक, पॉलिटिकल रिटोरिक है, मे बी इन्फ्लुएंस्ड बाय द ऑनगोइंग इलेक्शंस. इसके अलावा ये कुछ भी नहीं है. लेकिन चूंकि वो कहते हैं somebody here should be similar enough, the same level के लोगों को सो रिस्पॉन्ड करना चाहिए.
Thank you, sir. Next, if Anam.
My question today is from Benefit Life. Sir, how can you
If you want a question for Dr. Ansar, I have a question.
How the emerging and new technologies can augment how the emerging and new technologies can augment Indian counter-force capabilities, and what should be Pakistan's possible response option? And there's another question which I asked previously as well.
ये सुबह भी, आई मीन इट्स अ वेरी लॉजिकल क्वेश्चन. आपने कोई अनयूजुअल क्वेश्चन नहीं पूछा. दिस इज ऑन एवरीबॉडीज माइंड बिकॉज इमर्जिंग टेक्नोलॉजीज इज नाउ द न्यू मंत्र, और हाँ बज़वर्ड है. और इसमें याद रखें कि इमर्जिंग टेक्नोलॉजीज इज नॉट जस्ट वन पर्टिकुलर आइटम. ये कोई मेरा ख्याल 8-10 टेक्नोलॉजीज का एक वो है एमएलगम. तो जनरल रूब्रिक जो है वो इमर्जिंग टेक्नोलॉजीज का नाम उसको मिल गया है. इन द वेस्ट इट्स बीन अराउंड आई थिंक फॉर ऑलमोस्ट अ डिकेड नाउ, लेकिन यहाँ साउथ एशिया में अब थोड़ा थोड़ा करके ये आ रहा है. इंडिया में भी आएगा, पाकिस्तान में भी आएगा. टेक्नोलॉजीज नेवर lag behind. Technology are always multiplying in any field. आप फोन देख लें, आप किधर के किधर आए हुए हैं. आप कोई भी चीज ले लें तो कंप्यूटर्स देख लें कहाँ से कहाँ पहुंचे हुए. सो टेक्नोलॉजी इज समथिंग विच इज, आई वोंट से इट्स अ नेचुरल फिनोमिना, लेकिन एक ही ऐसा फिनोमिना है साइंस का जिसमें कि कभी टेक्नोलॉजी आगे होगी और हम पीछे होंगे, और कभी हम आगे होंगे टेक्नोलॉजी पीछे होगी. लेकिन ये एक एवर एवर ऑन गोइंग प्रोसेस है. We should not be afraid of it. As time passes, as technology emerge, we all get used to it first of all. उसको absorb कर लेते हैं, try कर लेते हैं, और फिर वो ऐसे हो जाता है जैसे बच्चों का खेल. आप देख लें अपने आप, छोटे बच्चे जो हैं वो, आई थिंक दे आर born with a laptop, they are born with mobile phones. तो उनके लिए वो खिलौने बन जाते हैं. टेक्नोलॉजी इज इनएविटेबल. It will come. It will come in India in the context of South Asia. It will be absorbed in their strategies. It will be absorbed in their weapon systems. It will come to Pakistan. It will be absorbed in Pakistani weapon systems. There's no two opinions. I'm very clear. I think we scientists वगैरह engineers बैठे हुए हैं कि टेक्नोलॉजी, आप भट्ट साहब से ही पूछ लें, इनसे पूछ लें कि जो लेट से कैनुक के वक्त में था और अब जो आ रही है, इवन पावर प्लांट्स में देयर आर कांस्टेंट इंप्रूवमेंट्स. हर हर चीज में नई चीज आ रही होती है. तो वही हाल इसका भी है इमर्जिंग टेक्नोलॉजीज का. चाहे वो आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस है, रोबोटिक्स है, चाहे वो ड्रोन्स है, चाहे वो स्पेस है, साइबर है, जितने भी हैं ये सारे, इन सब में इम्प्रूवमेंट्स होती रहेंगी, इंट्रोडक्शंस होते रहेंगे, और अपनी अपनी कैपेसिटीज के हिसाब से, अपनी अपनी रिक्वायरमेंट्स के हिसाब से पीपल विल कंटिन्यू टू एब्जॉर्ब. And India will do it, and we will do it, and we are doing it already. It may not be public knowledge, but in the domain of the three services, Army, Air Force, Navy, and the domain of the SPD and our STAT organizations, in various ways, these technologies are already coming in. So, frankly, I will say that we should be comfortable with टेक्नोलॉजी. ये तो एक एस्पेक्ट है टेक्नोलॉजी का. देयर आर सो मेनी थिंग्स दैट आर कमिंग इन. एयरफोर्स में आप पूछें कि रोजाना एक नया कोई बीवीआर आ जाता है, कोई नया आ जाता है, उसकी रेंज बढ़ जाती है, उसका कुछ और बढ़ जाता है, रेडार बेहतर आ जाते हैं. तो टेक्नोलॉजीज की आती रहेंगी, एब्जॉर्ब करती रहेंगी. एक जमाना था, आप पाकिस्तान एयरफोर्स में F-86 आया था, सेबर जेट, तो इंडिया हिल के रह गया था. आज आप F-86 की जगह आप देखेंगे F-16 और JF-17 और J-10 और पता नहीं क्या क्या आए हुए हैं, जिनको दिस दे वुड नॉक आउट सेवर्स लाइक दैट. तो ये ऑलमोस्ट, लेकिन ये डिकेड डिकेड आई थिंक अप्रोक्सीमेटली एक डिकेड का टाइम होता है जिसमें टेक्नोलॉजी आती है, एब्जॉर्ब की स्टडी की जाती है, एब्जॉर्ब की जाती है, बिफोर इट बिकम्स अ वेरी यूजुअल थिंग. यू गेट यूज्ड टू इट.
इसमें थोड़ा सा ऐड करना चाहता हूँ. तो देखें, जो डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज है ना, उनके लिए बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज है. जो डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज हैं उनके लिए इमर्जिंग टेक्नोलॉजी चैलेंज नहीं है. दे आर ऑलरेडी एट अ लेवल, वो एक छलांग आगे जाते हैं, एक स्टेप आगे जाते हैं, वहाँ पहुंच जाते हैं. डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज का मसला ये है कि इनको या तो एक बहुत बड़ी क्वांटम जंप करनी पड़ेगी इधर उधर. एंड इफ यू कीप ऑन मेकिंग दिस जंप्स विदाउट मेकिंग द बेसिक्स, आपके पास बेसिक टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं है, थोड़ी हाई लेवल की टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं है, एंड यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट इमर्जिंग टेक्नोलॉजी एंड द लेटेस्ट टेक्नोलॉजी इन एवरीथिंग एल्स, तो हो सकता है कि आप आगे ना बढ़े. एंड आई थिंक इसमें हमें चाइना से एक बड़ी ज़बरदस्त मिसाल लेनी चाहिए. व्हेन चाइना स्टार्टेड अबाउट 30 ईयर्स अगो, दे डिड नॉट गो फॉर एडवांस टेक्नोलॉजीज. उन्होंने पहले सिर्फ बेसिक चीज़ें, कागज़, पेंसिल, पेन, छोटी मोटी चीज़ें बनाओ. उसके बाद, और उन्होंने कोई पब्लिकेशन पे भी जोर नहीं दिया, कुछ नहीं करना, बस सिर्फ अपने आप ने एक टेक्नोलॉजी नो हाउ डेवलप करनी है, लोगों को पढ़ाना है, छोटी मोटी चीज़ें बनानी है. जब उनका स्ट्रक्चर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर तैयार हो गया, नाउ दे आर लीडिंग द वर्ल्ड. अब उन्होंने अमेरिका को बीट कर दिया नंबर ऑफ पब्लिकेशन, उनको आइडिया में बीट कर दिया आइडिया में. तो दिस इज समथिंग जो कि आप ओवरनाइट अचीव कर सकते हैं. यू हैव टू डू द बेसिक्स, you have to go through the intermediate step, and then you can technology. But at the same time, this does not mean that you can keep your eyes closed from the emerging technology. You have to keep your eyes open. आपको पता होना चाहिए कि अल्टीमेटली आपने जाना कहाँ है. लेकिन उस जाने के लिए अगर आप समझें कि मैं सिर्फ इसी को पकड़ लूँ और पीछे बिल्कुल खाली है, तो ये नहीं होगा. यू ओनली एंड अप पेइंग मनी टू समबडी हु इज वर्किंग ऑन इट, और आप फिर जब उसके बाद टेक्नोलॉजी आएगी, देन यू विल पे अनदर सम ऑफ मनी. तो ये बड़ा चैलेंजिंग होता है एक्चुअली. इस पे यूनेस्को की एक बड़ी रिपोर्ट भी है कि जो डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज हैं वो साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी को कैसे टैकल करें. तो वो कभी अगर आपको मौका मिले ना, तो आप उसको जाके पढ़ें. दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट.
Thank you. I will take two more questions. Then I will go online for three questions, and then we will end the question answer session. Moise.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. Thanks to Sir Kidwai and Dr. Ansar for enlightening talk. My question for Sir Kidwai is, sir, cyber domain has evolved as a new arena of warfare. Stuxnet attack on Iranian nuclear plant and other examples show that there are certain implications of cyber warfare for nuclear weapons. Should Pakistan also identify its cyber threshold publicly as done previously in other domains or not? Thank you, sir.
I think this is a part of any development process. कोई भी वेपन जो बनाया जाता है, उसमें you take into account all possible threats that the technology adversary, whether it possesses today or ये current trends क्या हैं, और उनके खिलाफ already उसमें inbuilt counter mechanisms डाले जाते हैं. So cyber is just one of them, and obviously it's a very basic thing. वो तो कंप्यूटर्स के इतना, मतलब द होल वर्ल्ड इज रनिंग ऑन कंप्यूटर्स, एंड समथिंग गोज रॉन्ग, देयर इज अ ग्लिच, पूरा न्यूयॉर्क सिटी जो है वो उसकी बिजली बंद हो जाती है. तो हैकिंग इनटू बैंक अकाउंट्स, हैकिंग इनटू दिस एंड हैकिंग इनटू दैट इज आल्सो नॉर्मल फिनोमेना. लेकिन इन टर्म्स ऑफ वेपन्स स्पेसिफिकली स्पीकिंग, whether these are conventional advanced weapons, whether these are nuclear advanced weapons. I think all people who work on the development of these weapons, they ensure कि जितनी known technologies हैं which can affect or make life difficult for that particular weapon or neutralize that weapon in one way or the other, उसके खिलाफ counter mechanism जो होते हैं वो उसमें जरूर डाले जाते हैं.
Dr. Ataullah Shah from Gilgit is seeking the floor and he has to go somewhere. So I will break this, not take the other question and pass on to Dr. Ataullah Shah in Gilgit, the Vice Chancellor of Karakoram University. शायद आप कराएं.
The disposal of the fissile material, because there is a growing concern around the world that the disposal of this uranium and plutonium after all this use has become a real challenge. So what is the protocol? What are the protocols used by the Pakistan SPD for disposal of this fissile material after the
Screen ये सवाल क्लियर नहीं आया. Radioactive. I think he means waste management. भाई वो हाँ अब आ गए.
हमारा सवाल ये है कि ये जो fissile material है after the nuclear power plant, what are the protocols for its safe disposal? Because there is a growing concern in Pakistan and around the world about the disposal of fissile material after the use in the power plants.
Yeah, I think this is a very good and a relevant question. And before I answer that, I'll just try to explain as to the kind of waste which are produced in a nuclear power plant. Actually, there are different categories of waste. Some are low-level waste and they can be managed. There is no problem. The problem that people talk about normally is the high-level waste, which is the power, this is the fuel which is spent. The spent fuel, when it comes out, it has certain material which has very high activity, radioactivity, and we have to deal it carefully. Two things that I want to say in this regard. Number one is that nuclear industry, that is nuclear power plants, is the only industry in the world that takes record or keeps track of every single speck of waste that is generated. It does not let anything go into the environment unless it knows fully as to what the consequences will be. There is no other industry, coal, gas, oil, anything which will take care of that. The other thing is that the nuclear waste generated in a nuclear power plant is very small. For example, if a 1,000-megawatt plant operates for 60 years, the total waste generated, the total fuel, spent fuel coming out of it, even if you put it in canisters, will be contained within the size of a swimming pool. Olympic size swimming pool will contain all the waste generated in 60 years by a 1,000-megawatt nuclear power plant, which makes the total quantity of waste very small and manageable. What is being planned these days across the world, across the globe, is to take this waste and bury it in a deep geological site. And as a matter of fact, this is something that has not materialized so far. And now people are thinking of long-term storage in a way that this waste will not get back into the environment. And Finland has already built one facility. Belgium is also working on something like that. So, and in Pakistan also, we take this waste and we keep it completely isolated, completely contained, and all in solid form and under great watch. And there is no way that it can go to the atmosphere or to that.
This question, I just wanted to say.
आपको माइक ही रहा.
मैं टीचरों को ऊंचा भी बोल सकती हूँ वैसे.
Okay, so in all the years that I've been with him throughout, we've been married for the longest possible time, mashallah. So whenever he started working on this nuclear program thingy and all that, this is the first time I've heard a question about nuclear waste. Huh? Even I had never thought of it. So the people who are raising this question in the media, huh? The people, where did you hear this question from? Where did it come from in your mind?
Gilgit.
From Gilgit Baltistan. He's sitting over there thinking about nuclear waste. Okay, so the thing is that this relates to more than actual nuclear waste, but about creating a sense of unease, of creating a sense of danger, and creating a sense of something which going wrong in the business. And that can only come from sources. You need to question the sources. Where has this come from? How come this person sitting in Gilgit Baltistan thought about this? And how has this become a question that has been asked here? It's very interesting, really very interesting. So when such ideas are disseminated in a population, I'm from the academic side only. I'm not from the scientific side, right? So when it's such sort of questions are disseminated in a population, it will create a sense of unease, and it will create. It seems like a troublemaking sort of thing to me.
Thank you. इस पे और अगर कोई बात नहीं है तो मैं नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन पे जा रहा हूँ.
इस पे मैं कमेंट करना चाह रहा था. एक्चुअली वेस्ट न्यूक्लियर वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट का न्यूक्लियर जो इस वक्त दुनिया में द रीजन न्यूक्लियर पावर इज नॉट एक्सपेंडिंग, न्यूक्लियर पावर इज नॉट ग्रोइंग इन द वर्ल्ड डिस्पाइट द फैक्ट के इज वेरी क्लाइमेट फ्रेंडली, द टेम्परेचर्स आर इंक्रीजिंग, एवरीबडी इज वरीड, बट स्टिल world is not going after it. And when I say world, I mean Europe and America. And I also understand, I may be wrong there, that if there is a technology which Europeans do not adopt, which Canada and America do not adopt, rest of the world will be very difficult. It will be very difficult for them to adopt it. As a matter of fact, these countries will make it difficult for them to adopt it. So this is one thing. And the only reason why it's not going on is because nuclear industry, I think, has not been able to tell people that nuclear radiations are not as dangerous as people think. And because nuclear people have not been able to communicate to the people that nuclear waste is not as big a problem as people think. So the fault actually lies with the nuclear industry itself, that they are not being able to do these things in the right way.
Thank you. Two fingers. Okay, please.
I just reiterate a point that has been made around the table, which is that after the Fukushima nuclear accident in 2011, एक general scare nuclear energy के खिलाफ पैदा हुआ, and many people thought that it was a nuclear accident. Not many people know that there was not a single person who lost life because of a nuclear accident. It was not a nuclear accident. वहाँ पे एक या दो बंदों की मौत हुई थी, वो भी उनके सर पे पाइप गिरा था. And rest of the casualties in Japan were because of the tsunami there. That said, what happened in Germany and rest of the Europe was a scare that came up, and Germany led the code. और उन्होंने वहाँ पे downsizing nuclear power plants बंद करना शुरू कर दिए. But if we are reading our papers very closely, there has been a nuclear renaissance not only in Europe, in Germany, in US and elsewhere. So old nuclear power plants को restart भी किया गया, नए भी बनाए जा रहे हैं. And I think we have to, और जिस तरफ ये भी global warming वाली debate जा रही है, I think if there is one technology which can actually save you from the global warming and is the most environmentally friendly and the most secure, is nuclear energy. Right. I'm saying it not because I'm sitting in a nuclear enclave. I'm telling you on the basis of the latest research which is going on in the nuclear field. Thank you.
I have a question from Karachi. Mr. Nusrat Mirza wants to ask that question. तो शायद आप हमें मिला दें कराची. हाँ, बोलिए नुसरत साहब।
आपने लिख के भेज दिया है। आई जस्ट पेड द कम्प्लीमेंट, आई हैव गिवन द कम्प्लीमेंट टू जनरल साहब एंड टू यू एम्बेसडर साहब, यू आर माई गुड फ्रेंड, वेरी लॉन्ग फ्रेंड ऑफ माइन।
यस।
मैं सिर्फ ये अर्ज करना चाहता हूँ इंतहाई अदब और अदब के साथ में कि जो कुछ भी इस वक्त तकारीर जो है जनरल कदवाई साहब कर रहे हैं, इट इज़ मेकिंग द हिस्ट्री इट सेल्फ, इट इज़ मेकिंग द बुक इट सेल्फ। मैं इस पर ऑलरेडी आई एम वर्किंग ऑन इट, और मैं ये समझता हूँ कि बहुत सी ऐसी बातें हैं जो कि मैं ऐसा आदमी हूँ कि जो जनरल डॉक्टर ए क्यू खान के साथ बहुत रहा हूँ, उनका मैं दोस्त रहा हूँ, उन पर मैंने किताब लिखी है 400 पेज की। और इसके साथ साथ में वो इन्फॉर्मेशन जो मुझे जनरल वो देना चाहते थे, जनरल ज़ियाउल हक साहब, वो भी मेरे बहुत, मैं उनके करीब रहा हूँ। तो वो सब बातों के बावजूद जो जनरल कदवाई साहब बात कर रहे हैं वो इतनी इन्फॉर्मेटिव है कि जो बजाते खुद हम ये समझते हैं कि हम आज हर दफ़ा की तकरीर उनकी जो होती है, हमें ये महसूस होती है कि एक नई चीज़ हमें आज मालूम हो गई है। तो जो सवाल हमारे बरदर मोहतरम ने किसी ने किया है कि किताब लिखनी चाहिए, मैं ये समझता हूँ कि वो इससे ज़्यादा नहीं लिख सकते हैं। जो कुछ वो अपनी तकरीर में कह रहे हैं वो उससे हमें ड्राइव करना चाहिए किसी भी आथर को, हम जैसे आथर को जो उर्दू जानता है, अंग्रेज़ी उसकी, मैंने क्योंकि पीले स्कूल का पढ़ा हुआ है तो अमूमन उसकी इंग्लिश पे सवाल होता है, लेकिन दानिश तो इंग्लिश से पैदा नहीं होती ना, दानिश तो फिर अल्लाह की तरफ से पैदा होती है, इंसान के अंदर होती है। तो वो लिख देगा, कोई परवाह नहीं करें आप इसका, यानी इस जनरल साहब की का पर। और मैं उनको कम्प्लीमेंट देना चाहता हूँ कि ऐसा ऐसा अजीम शख्सियत जो है डॉक्टर ए क्यू खान के बाद में, अंसर परवेज साहब का अलग कम्प्लीमेंट है, जो जानते हैं अंसर परवेज साहब जैसा बहादुर आदमी मेरे साथ, मैंने उनके साथ काम किया है, और जिस अंदाज से हमने फील्ड में काम किया और जो जिस तरह से हमने लोगों को हराया K2 और K3 के मामले में, कराची के जो लोग थे जो हमारी मुखालफत कर रहे थे, हमने उनको डिफीट दिए। और हमने, अल्लाह का शुक्र है कि भूत भाई जैसे आदमी को एक ठिकाने लगा के की तरफ बैठा दिया। तो अब भी हम ये कहते हैं कि इंशाल्लाह ताला जो जनरल कदवाई साहब कर रहे हैं हम उनके सिपाही हैं, और हम इंशाल्लाह ताला एक जो उनकी ख्वाहिशात हैं, जो लोगों की ख्वाहिशात हैं, वो हम इनके थ्रू ही पूरा करेंगे, इनके अल्फाज से पूरा करेंगे। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आपका।
बहुत शुक्रिया। आपने कैमरा बंद किया हुआ था तो आपकी
नहीं, मुझे पता नहीं है अभी, क्योंकि मैं जरा अब इतना मेरे साथ पूरी टीम बैठी हुई है आसपास, लेकिन वो मैंने कैमरा नहीं किया, लेकिन बहरहाल आवाज़ तो आ गई ना।
या कोई आपको टीवी पे देख लेते हैं तो
हाँ
वो ठीक है। थैंक यू। नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन विल बी फ्रॉम हियर जी। अच्छा, आप पूछिए। कैसे नहीं आया अभी तक?
Basically, I have a very quick question. This is about, you see, Atom for Peace. My question is basically that, mashallah, what we have heard from General Kuzai, I think we have gone a very long way, and inshallah, we'll keep going on this, developing it. At present, the situation we are facing as a nation is on the economic side, where the economy is the critical question. And my question is, are we making the optimal use of nuclear for production, for economy? Can it be better use, more use of for the economic? I mean, there are number of industries which can come up, and where there can be a much more use of the nuclear facilities. That is what my question was.
Thank you. I think I already talked about the nuclear power plants that have been set up in Pakistan. They produce energy at the cheapest possible rate. Only hydro is cheaper than that. That is what you can do, is to produce electricity at an economical rate. The development जो है किसी भी मुल्क की आजकल is directly dependent on the energy जैसे आप प्रोड्यूस कर सकते हैं, एंड व्हाट इज द कॉस्ट ऑफ एनर्जी। इन जर्मनी फॉर एग्जांपल, घरों को वो बिजली देते हैं 35 सेंट की, इंडस्ट्री को देते हैं 13 सेंट की, because they know that if the industry doesn't get cheap electricity, they cannot compete with the European market or elsewhere. So producing cheap electricity is one thing. The only thing that is wrong with nuclear is that to create nuclear energy, you need a huge investment in terms of the capital cost. And also the construction time is very large, like 5 to 6 to 7 years. And if that, then you have to have people with vision, you have to have people with understanding, and you cannot afford a set of people who just do with band-aid solutions or who are just doing firefighting. तो आपको एक दफा बैठ जाएं, सोचें, करें और उसके बाद इस्तेमाल करें. Other uses of nuclear technology, of course, are in agriculture through mutation. But I may also tell you here that world over, now the use of nuclear technology for generating different type of crops is on the fall, is decreasing, and genetic engineering or crossbreeding is becoming more popular for developing different varieties. But I think the contribution that nuclear technology, or for that matter, as Barsab just said, Atomic Energy Commission has made it, is made to the Pakistan economy and to the well-being of its people, is that PAC set up the nuclear medical centers to begin with. And now they have 19 medical centers, and all over Pakistan there are 50, which make use of these radiations, some in government sectors, some in private sectors. In the agriculture, Pakistan Atomic Commission set up the first agriculture in NIA in 1962, and then in Nayab in Faisalabad. And this was the first time that a person with a tie and a coat was talking about agriculture. There was only a Youm agriculture research by that time. So agriculture was something which people thought did not make use of technology. Now they actually introduced this concept. Now there are many organizations, there are many setups, there are many. So in that way we are doing, but the point is that island of excellence, no matter how excellent they are, cannot do the whole job. You have to do the whole thing together. The whole country has to come up with some ideology, with some program, and then move.
So all I can say is that in a recent survey done partly by some of the universities and partly by my own setup, जो ज्यादातर जो unit cost जो आई है compared to especially by China, it is normally like the exercise is the cost of it. Now my main question was, is the nuclear facility, can it be can it produce even lower than that, which in competition, not exactly in competition, but in line with the Chinese in the road?
You mean cheaper electricity?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you see,
I think yes, yeah, you're right. But the thing is, it's a better. Yes.
The production is not so much the issue.
Capacity payments you are paying because you build the power plants and you don't have the industry
That is right.
to consume that electricity. So this is chicken and egg. So even if you produce cheap electricity, if you don't have the industry, you know what happens in Pakistan, the electricity consumption in winter months, winter days is 9,000 megawatts. And in summer, it's more than 20. ये जो difference है ना 12 का, ये सिर्फ air conditioning का load है. 90% of it is non-productive, doesn't contribute to the economy. तो आप बिजली ज्यादा दे देंगे तो आपकी बिजली की 2/3 इसी में चली जाएगी. तो you have to set the whole system right. You have to work it out somehow.
And next, there is a question from Quetta, Balochistan Think Tank Network, Mr. Asadullah Reisani. Question is for General Kadwai. How challenging is it for a country like Pakistan, with an unstable economy and political landscape and an insurgency in its largest province, which clearly has foreign hands, to maintain its nuclear deterrence, particularly when India is clearly on the path of becoming Akhand Bharat, and its top officials frequently use anti-Pakistan rhetoric to gain political advantages? Yes, sir.
Hello.
Sorry.
Asad, I hope you can hear me. We can't hear him.
Yeah, we can't hear him, but he will hear you.
He will hear us. Well, I hope that you can hear me. The question is, Yeah, Naqvi Saab has just read. How challenging is it for a country like Pakistan with an unstable economy and political landscape and an insurgency in its largest province, which clearly has foreign hands, to maintain its nuclear deterrence? Particularly when India is clearly on the path of becoming Akhand Bharat and its top officials frequently use anti-Pakistan rhetoric to gain political advantages. Well, I think in many ways I have answered it already in terms of the Indian approach currently, which I've said is political rhetoric, and one should not be reading too much into it, except that this is probably related to the ongoing elections. And therefore, in ongoing elections, political rhetoric is always fair. And hopefully, once these elections are over and the results are out, perhaps this kind of rhetoric will, if not end, at least it might take a second or third place. Lekin the first part of your question, how challenging is it for a country like Pakistan? I think as far as the nuclear sector is concerned, I haven't come across any particular challenge in terms of an unstable situation that you're talking about in economy. Yes, there is a economic problem, and political also is some kind of a political instability. The good thing about the nuclear program is the national consensus. The biggest strength, I think, of Pakistan's nuclear program is national consensus. And I said it at 2 or 3 places, irrespective of the politics of the day. And since there is national consensus, there is support for the nuclear program, both in terms of economic management, finances, etc., and also in terms of the NCA taking decisions as to where this program needs to go. So uspe and because of these two aspects are taken care of, and they are not affecting at all the growth or the development of Pakistan nuclear program. And as for the third element that you've talked about is the ongoing insurgency in Balochistan. I think you're sitting in BTTN and you would know much better, and you may like to hear it from your leadership of Brigadier Aga Gul and Dr. Zafar there, that this insurgency is first of all confined. That's my understanding. It's confined to southern parts of Balochistan. And ideally, yes, one would love that it wasn't there. And I hope and pray to God that it ends amicably in the interest of Pakistan. But it's on the periphery. And it's on the periphery, and therefore the nuclear program, which is centered around central regions of Pakistan where there's absolute peace. I don't think that is affecting at all the insurgency in Balochistan, which is again limited in many ways to southern parts of Balochistan. So on all three accounts, national consensus takes care of whatever challenges might be around. Otherwise, if there was no consensus, if there was one political party and then a change of political party with a different view, then probably that there would have been a challenge. But since there is unanimity on this program, irrespective of the parties, political parties, so that really is not much of a challenge to the nuclear program.
Thank you. Thank you, Jan Sahab. I will take.
Sir, can I please?
Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for the enlightening speeches. And I must say that we, the members of strategic community, are celebrating today as Eid, Alhamdulillah. And it's nice to see that many organizations, even in Islamabad, are commemorating Youm-e-Takbeer today. And a major change this year has been the government's announcement of the public holiday today. We appreciated the step, but at the same time, we have witnessed different, sorts of, I would say, comments and responses on social media. And even I think that different members of our strategic community do not exhibit that sense of unity. So how do you think that these aspects of hybrid or information warfare, I would say, are going to affect our resolve, our resilience, and the nuclear program in the future, and what steps must be taken? Thank you.
in the strategic community, you have sensed some kind of a differences?
Yes, sir. Maybe in the academia or people who think that they're experts, some academics or even think tank professionals, or some people who've been associated with strategic organizations in their private capacity may differ from the government's point of view. So I think as a think tank professional and being a worker.
On what aspects? जो core nuclear program है and the need for a nuclear program, need for
maybe
nuclear...
my observation is related more to building accounts and narratives.
Which accounts?
And narratives about our strategic program.
Frankly, that is not my understanding.
All right. Off the cuff, I can just present one example that, while
sorry to
doing
cut
some
you.
research,
अगर कोई specific observation है, which is a mainstream observation. Otherwise, periphery पे you will find all kinds of opinions.
Right.
Which
So
I
जैसे
think should
सोशल
be
मीडिया पे
best
बहुत
ignored.
ज्यादा आई थिंक क्रिबिंग बहुत ज्यादा एक पैटर्न बन गई है हमारे नेशनल कल्चर बनता जा रहा है आज आई डोंट थिंक देयर इज अ ग्रुप जहाँ पे इसको क्रिटिसाइज नहीं किया गया इस स्टेप को गवर्नमेंट के कि आज छुट्टी अनाउंस होगी सेकेंडली वो एक यूनिटी होनी चाहिए हमारे आई थिंक एज अ कल्चर जो हमें फॉलो करनी चाहिए आई वाज जस्ट आस्किंग कि हम इसको किस तरह इम्प्रूव करें बिकॉज हम तो वो एफर्ट कर रहे हैं अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह लेकिन लार्जर कम्युनिटी को हम किस तरह इस
कौन सी कम्युनिटी की बात कर रहे हैं?
लेट्स से एकेडमिक्स या थिंक टैंक्स या यंग स्कॉलर्स या गवर्नमेंट ऑफिशियल्स एवरीवन
नहीं इनकी क्या ऑब्जर्वेशन है? They are not there. They have reservations about the program.
Maybe, sir. I think maybe they don't know about it, but एक culture ऐसा बनता जा रहा है और ये हम थोड़ा सा feel करते हैं while writing about it. Yes, media as well.
Media में, I mean, frankly, this is not my observation. I think she is quite more than capable of explaining herself.
They can just pull in because I think we need to discuss these issues. एक छोटी सी example अभी मुझे बस ध्यान में आ रही जैसे कि कुछ terms हैं Southern Asia है या trilemma debate है including China and South Asian debate. So I think हम जी Indo-Pacific की term है. So अभी जल्दी में तो बस मुझे यही ख्यालात आ रहे हैं कि हम इस पे अभी तक यूनाइटेड नहीं लग रहे
किस चीज पे
कि भाई इसमें हमारा इशू क्या है
एक चीज होती है मैंने बताया आई यूज द वर्ड मेन स्ट्रीम एक है मेन स्ट्रीम ओपिनियन and the crux of that mainstream opinion my understanding is that all Pakistanis at least most Pakistanis are united on the need for a nuclear weapons capability with Pakistan इस पे कम से कम मुझे शक नहीं है चाहे वो पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज हैं चाहे वो पब्लिक ओपिनियन है चाहे वो एकेडमिक्स हैं individual opinions here and there for they may not agree with a particular aspect of it उसमें किसी nuance की शायद फर्क आ सकता है लेकिन जो मेन स्ट्रीम नीड है कि पाकिस्तान के पास न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स होने चाहिए मैं तो कहता हूँ दिस न्यूक्लियर प्रोग्राम इज ओन्ड बाय द स्ट्रीट ऑफ पाकिस्तान कॉमन मैन स्ट्रीट पे जो है आप कहीं पे भी देख लें सुन लें ग्रोसरी आ गया वो ये क्या होने वाला है पाकिस्तान का प्रोग्राम कहाँ जा रहा है इट्स अ कंसर्न इट शुड बी टेकन पॉजिटिवली कि पब्लिक ओपिनियन हिल जाती है कि फलाना जो है ये हमारे वेपन्स लेने आ गया फलाना जो है कॉन्स्पिरेसी कर रहा है हमारे वेपन ले जाएगा उसकी ओनरशिप जो है वो पाकिस्तान की स्ट्रीट्स पर है कॉमन मैन के पास है ओपिनियन तो इसमें मुझे नहीं शक कि कोई इसके ऊपर डिफरेंसेस ऑफ ओपिनियन है ऑन द नीड फॉर हैविंग अ बाकी ये कि उसके नुआंसेस में उसकी पेरिफेरी पे सर्टेन एस्पेक्ट्स के ऊपर कि ये ऐसे क्यों हो गया वो वैसे होना चाहिए तो but nobody is except for some die-hard no names otherwise पाकिस्तान की नीड फॉर अ न्यूक्लियर प्रोग्राम फॉर न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स प्रोग्राम इस पे कम से कम मुझे शक नहीं है हो सकता है कुछ एकेडमिक्स को हो कि पाकिस्तान जरूरत है कि नहीं बिकॉज देयर इज वन थिंग विच वी ऑल अंडरस्टैंड विच इज स्टैंडिंग बिटवीन पाकिस्तान कैलेमिटी and its security. और बेतहाशा एग्जाम्पल्स है, मैंने यहाँ शायद नहीं दिए, सुबह अप्रैल में मैंने दी थी. नॉन न्यूक्लियर जो था, they've all been sorted out.
यूक्रेन
मैंने यूक्रेन का भी एग्जाम्पल दिया, सीरिया, इराक, वो सब हम सबको पता है, अफगानिस्तान, पैलेस्टाइन, कश्मीर, लिबिया, यू नेम इट, सीरिया, जो नॉन न्यूक्लियर था, they've been sorted out.
Yes, sir. I think now time is running short, and we have already exceeded our session for the question and answer. So I will conclude the Q&A session, and Mariam, you please go ahead with the proceedings.
Thank you, everyone, for your active participation. I now invite Brigadier Zahir Kazmi to share his remarks. Brigadier Kazmi is the Director General of Arms Control and Disarmament Affairs.
Thanks, introduction. Thanks.
Okay, sir. Over to you, sir.
I very reluctantly actually accepted the direction from Ambassador Naqvi कि आप इसके बाद comments दे दीजिएगा, because the little that I've learned in long military career is कि अपने seniors के बाद कभी भी नहीं बोलना चाहिए, बदतमीजी होती है. लेकिन मैं what I'll do is I'll not add any new thought, but I'll try and summarize what I've just learned. I've learned a lot today in today's debate. Or I can sum up, I think, 6 challenges that we have identified around the table. Some are new and few are enduring. जो emerging challenges हैं वो emerging technologies हैं, उसके अलावा geopolitical environment है in which we are playing. Then the hybridity of warfare, although warfare has always been hybrid, but उसमें nuclear dimension के अंदर once some states want to play below the nuclear threshold and try and coerce or hurt the adversary, and we are a target of that. And then जो enduring challenges हैं उनमें इंडिया का risky behavior, इंडिया का गंगुआ attitude, their leadership's brinkmanship, sometimes related to elections or otherwise. Then the sanctions under which or the Pakistan has remained from time to time, and constraints जो पाकिस्तान के प्रोग्राम पे लाई जाती हैं, although these have usually worked in our benefit. The information warfare that we are targeted to, and some pessimism that is generated deliberately or otherwise around the nuclear debate, जिसका अभी थोड़ी सी बात भी हुई. So what are our strengths? What I could sum up from the worthy speeches and debate around is that there's national consensus, and I think these things, CISS and other think tanks are doing an excellent, and other people in academia and elsewhere are doing an excellent work in trying to maintain it. And there have been several forays always in trying to break that national consensus. And as General Kedai very correctly said, it is owned even at the street level. किसी से आप बात करके देखें, वो बिल्कुल उसका mood change हो जाता है once you talk about nuclear program. So I think some of our learned academics actually learn from the street wisdom about it, about the value of the nuclear program, and not get into pessimism. उसके अलावा I think एक और जो, because we are sitting in a think tank, हमारी जो strategic communication है, जो हम information warfare के against काम कर रहे होते हैं, I think that is one area where we ought to continue to work a lot and make a difference, because everyone here is pitched against 10 Indians and number of other people. Likewise, हमारी alhamdulillah, our capabilities and the expertise that we have in our strategic commissions has always been able to pour cold water on cold start type of doctrines. I'm borrowing General Kidwai's word, a term on this. So the way forward is, I think, capability है, अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह उसको maintain किया जा रहा है. Communication, हमने जब threat को करना होता है हम वो ज़रूर करते हैं. Credibility is a product of that. So इसमें जो academics का, think tank experts का काम है, we should continue to do it without getting affected by the negativity that some people try to generate around the nuclear program. And I think I stop here And I just want to again reiterate that we should continue to have faith in our capability, and we stand on the shoulders of giants like Pervez Bhatt Sahab, Ansar Pervez Sahab, General Kidwai Sahab, who have done a lot of work, and we are here, and we need to actually celebrate it rather than being apologetic about it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I now invite Dr. Atyali Kazmi, Director Research CISS, to deliver her vote of thanks. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you, Mariam. First, please let me make myself clear. Okay, although Alhamdulillah, I have that conviction and that trust. लेकिन while working on these areas, ये हम observe कर रहे होते हैं, तो sir, I just wanted to bring this discussion on the table. And we are really, really grateful to our honorable speakers and esteemed guests, General Kidwai sir, Dr. Ansar Pervez sir, and Ma'am Dr. Lubna Kidwai, for their presence today as we commemorate Youm-e-Takbeer. Your invaluable contributions to our nuclear program have left an indelible mark on our nation's history, and we remain forever indebted to you. Thank you. In addition, we extend our heartfelt gratitude to all the visionaries and pioneers who conceived and brought our nuclear program to fruition. May Allah bless them, and may He continue to bless our homeland. Ameen. And on this day, we assure that the Center for International Strategic Studies, Islamabad, is committed to its pivotal role in strategic communication related to our nuclear program, and also in defending its intellectual frontiers. Much like the minimalist yet effective nature of our deterrence capability, the CISS team may be small, but it's highly credible and dedicated. And we just believe in that. Tundiye baade mukhalif se na ghabraye ukab. Ye to chalti hai tujhe uncha udane ke liye. With the guidance and support of the parent organization, the esteemed mentors, such as the three distinguished guests present here today, and our executive director, CISS is poised to continue its ascent, inshallah. We conclude this seminar while saluting our heroes and heroines whose selfless efforts have made our defense impregnable and contributed to the sustainable development of our great country. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll kindly request everyone to rise and join me in giving a standing ovation for them. Please.
I now request Ambassador Elisa Vanagui to conclude the session. I now request Ambassador Elisa Vanagui to conclude the session. I now invite Ambassador Elisa Vanagui to present the CISS shield to a distinguished speaker, Lieutenant General Khalid Ahmed Kidwai.